Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto souls transfer to Soul Society Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for Part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Sunlight streamed through the window of the small cabin, caressing the boy's face in its warm embrace. The air was swelteringly hot, almost oppressively so. He brushed the sweaty blonde bangs from his face, not quite sure why he did not want to get up at all. Lately, he had been having a bout with laziness and overall boredom. He was so bored that he did not want to do something to counteract the laziness, like some kind of vicious cycle. He wondered for a long moment if he had become the laziest thing in existence. How troublesome, he muttered under his breath, a flashbulb memory going off in his head. He wanted so badly to remember what that meant, because he was certain it meant something. It had to. But like the countless other times he had tried to remember something about his past life, he could not. Would not. He could not remember anything about where he grew up, where he was born. He could not remember his parents, or his closest friends. He knew nothing about how he died or why, he just knew that he had died and come to Rakangai, to live for the rest of eternity. That was where the boredom came in. Would he be like this forever, bored and unable to do anything exciting? He had lived in Hakuten, District 3 of West Rakangai, for as long as he could remember. For all he knew, he was not even sure that he had existed before he found himself here. He sat up and took a deep breath, sighing as he exhaled. He pulled himself from the small cot and headed toward the cupboard. Yet again, he frowned when he realized that he would have to eat rice and a simple piece of bread. As he prepared his meals, he let his mind wander to his to-do list for the day. 1. Go to work. 2. Work. 3. Leave from work. 4. Eat. 5. Sleep. 6. Repeat. Very rarely did the life he was living deviate from that schedule. No wonder he was constantly bored. The number of marks on the cupboard door caught his attention, his miniature calendar of sorts. Oh, today is payday. He realized aloud, smiling now. He could finally afford something other than pasty dry rice and stale bread. He figured that he would stock up on noodles from the shop to last him a few days of ramen, to celebrate having money before he returned to the endless doldrums of boredom. He knew it probably would not be endless, when he stopped to consider it. Most souls, when they go to the Soul Society, do not age or go hungry or become sick. He was not sure what made him different, but he had to eat, and he had aged only ever so slightly, slow enough that he knew it was not normal aging. At some point somewhere, he knew he would die from old age or sickness or something, but then what happened? What happens when a soul dies? He guessed that he was probably 14 or 15 by now, based on his height and body shape. He had a lean, compact body that had receded slightly due to his meager eating. He kept his hair trimmed and comfortably messy, but his eyes had changed since he first managed to look into his reflection. They were more dull, more lifeless. When he noticed that change, he realized that he was probably driving himself insane. He ate his small helpings, leaving enough for probably 2 more meals before he would need to buy more bread and rice. He sat in the quiet, alone and relatively happy. It was too silent, other than the small sounds of nature outside his window and the sounds of his chewing. He knew it was about time to leave, so he placed his bowl in the sink space. He walked to the other side of the room and threw on a gray tunic, before heading out the front door of the small cabin. He locked the door, although he was not quite sure why. Hardly anyone ever strayed far from town, and that was almost 2 miles away, at the base of the mountain. Not very many traveled through Hakuten as it was, but when they did, they stayed in town. He was not worried about thieves or bandits, but he could not stop himself from locking the door. As he strode at a regular pace, he wished that he could move a heck of a lot faster down the mountain. He liked his seclusion fairly well, but sometimes, he wanted to just take up his boss on his offer to move into the inn itself. It would save him a lot of trouble, but at the same time cut him off from the nature that he liked so much. He enjoyed living alone, had always enjoyed it for as long as he could remember. And he was an outdoors type of person, so his situation gave him the best of both worlds. But there were times when he was seriously tired of wandering down the mountain and climbing back up the mountain, despite his good stamina. It happened day in and day out, again and again. Hakuten was a mountain town with several tall buildings arranged around a single, convoluted street, and another row or 2 of smaller buildings behind them. It was not very rich, but it was not exactly poor either. Crime was not common, but not rare either. The people here were busy, always working or shopping or gossiping or dating. The town elder was an older woman named Kaori, and she was tough as nails. She often ruled with an ironclad resolve and tried not to deviate from her decisions and her experience. He crossed the main street and found the inn. They did not get a lot of visitors, but the boy felt like he had a good, steady job and that he was relatively good at it. It was not hard work, and it did not give him that excited feeling that he so desperately sought from the afterlife, but it was something necessary. He had had to learn to put up with it. The inn was relatively large and doubled as a bar of sorts, but the bar attracted a lot more attention than the actual rooms above. That was where he worked most, oddly enough for someone who appeared to be so young, but he had a feeling that he would be working on cleaning or rearranging today. He waved at some of the other workers, who smiled as he walked in. "Ah, Naruto," the man who owned the building said, crossing the lobby to bow as he entered. He slipped off his sandals at the door and stepped into the main lobby. "Tadashi, how are you doing today? Sorry I'm late, I was having some trouble getting up today." The man raised an eyebrow. "Running out of excuses? You need to break that habit of being a few minutes late, Naruto. It's not befitting of someone so young." "Hey, I'm not young," Naruto said, rubbing the back of his neck nervously. "I'll try better next time, okay?" Tadashi looked at him suspiciously for a moment, before he smiled and clapped the boy on the back. "All right, I believe you. You were not too late anyway, so do not worry too much. Today, you're going to start going through the rooms on each floor above and cleaning each empty room from top to bottom." He tried to put on a brave face, but cleaning was not his favorite way to spend his time. "Will do, Tadashi. Thank you." Tadashi nodded and left Naruto to get himself situated. He found the cleaning supplies in the supply closet and headed to the second floor, which was probably all he could get done in one day as is. He headed into the first unoccupied room and got to work. It took almost 2.5 hours to finish the first 2 rooms to Tadashi level standards. He smiled as he realized there were only 4 more rooms on the second floor, and that one of them was occupied. So he was almost halfway done for today's share of the work. He headed downstairs for a quick bite to eat. As he entered the bar area, he scouted out the patrons. It was a little bit busier than normal for this time of day, and a few of the regulars were there. But his eyes widened when he saw him. Daichi Tsubasa, Kaori's appointed grandson. Daichi was a nasty piece of work, a truly annoying, spoiled brat who deserved to rot in prison for some of the things he had said to other people. He did not care what he had to do, he would get his way with any type of manipulation imaginable. There were rumors that he was one of the bad seeds in Hakuten that brought in crime and illegal activity. It was a strange, ironic twist of fate that he was the adopted grandson of the town elder. Naruto could not stand him, and had no idea why a guy like him could find himself in heaven instead of hell. Nonetheless, Daichi had made it to the Soul Society and was being a general nuisance to everyone. Daichi was sitting at the bar with a few of his friends, and they were all laughing and cutting up. But Naruto was not focused on them. He was focused on the brunette girl, looking to be a few years older than Naruto, sitting strangely close to Daichi. She did not look very familiar, and there was nothing that particularly stood out about her, other than her kind eyes and dark bangs that ringed her face. But the nervous, almost frightened look in her face scared Naruto. "Hey Daichi, who's the lady with you?" The girl locked eyes with him, giving him a pleading look. Now he really did want to know what the hell was going on with Daichi and this girl. "None of your business, hermit kid," Daichi said with a grimace, laughing and looking positively snide. "Who are you calling a kid?" Naruto countered, anger showing across his face. "What are you doing with this girl anyway?" "Doing?" asked Daichi, his friends laughing at his tone, the tone that was making Naruto sick to his stomach. The seedy guy touched the girl's shoulder, and she visibly tensed. "I don't suppose I've done anything yet, but I can't say that won't happen tonight." He and his friends chuckled at the comment, but Naruto could tell that this girl probably would not like his plans for later. The blonde looked at her and offered a hand. "Come on, let's get you away from these guys." She gulped audibly and stared hesitantly at the hand, but Daichi was not going to let this go. "No, I don't think she will be going with you. She's going to come back with us and give us a good time." The girl looked positively terrified at the statement. "She's not going anywhere with you, Daichi. Who do you think you are?" Naruto was positively livid, his body temperature getting higher and higher. He clenched his fist with rage. These thugs were not about to harm this girl. "Much better than you," Daichi exclaimed back. Naruto did not know what came over him, but he immediately lunged at the older kid, surprising even Daichi. Naruto grabbed the thug's shoulders with both arms and yanked him toward the ground. Daichi landed on his back with an impressively loud thud. In that brief moment, Naruto's eyes bugged out at the newly created crack in the floor, just from his throw. But he did not have time to question it, because the thug retaliated quickly, giving him a quick underhanded jab to the stomach. Naruto's body convulsed as he lost his breath, his mind trying to comprehend what was happening. He did not let that punch stop him, because he shoved forward with all of his weight and tackled Daichi to the floor again. They rolled around quite a few times, slinging fists and shoving back again and again, all within the span of a few seconds. The entire bar was probably watching by that point, and both Daichi and Naruto were trading blows back and forth, seemingly evenly matched. Daichi's friends did not intervene, thankfully for Naruto, but the side of him that liked to fight wanted them all to try. Naruto flipped on top of Daichi one last time and pinned the boy's shoulders with his knees. Immediately, he began to pummel the hell out of Daichi's face. Naruto wanted each punch to leave a fist-shaped bruise. The thud of the thug's head pounding against the floor was music to the blonde's ears. "Naruto, what are you doing?" Tadashi shouted, immediately reaching to pull Naruto off of Daichi's body. Naruto nearly pushed his boss away, before he realized that he would have been shoving his boss. Tadashi yanked Naruto away from his opponent, who struggled to get up as his friends ran to help him. Naruto gave Daichi a threatening look. The annoying brat wiped blood from his jaw and shouted, "You better watch out, hermit kid. I'll get you back." And with that, the kid and his friends dashed out of the inn, leaving the girl behind. Everyone else in the bar just slowly went back to their business, save for a few strange looks to the blonde employee. Tadashi had the demanding look in his eyes. What the hell was that? Naruto gulped, knowing that it was going to be extremely hard to explain. Daichi and his friends were going to hurt her, Tadashi. I couldn't let that happen. The manager of the inn did not seem convinced, but he motioned for Naruto and the girl to join him in the stockroom, away from prying ears. My name is Tadashi, and this is Naruto. What's your name? He asked, as he turned to the girl in question. The brunette hesitated for a moment, still very frightened by what could have happened to her. It's Momo Hinamori, sir. What happened to you, Momo? How did you even get with that slug of a bastard? Asked Naruto, still angry by the possibilities. The girl swallowed, before gesturing to the west with her hand. I'm from Junonin. Daichi and a few of his friends ran into me there, in the main town. I was jumped late last night, and no matter how much I struggled, there was nothing that I could do to escape them. Her voice quivered with emotion. With so many of them, I was too scared to try to run away, and even if I could, they would have caught me. They basically kidnapped you? Tadashi asked, his brow furrowing. I'm going to kill him, Naruto said through clenched teeth. You'll do no such thing, Tadashi said. Think about his grandmother, Naruto. You'll be in deep already, but if you were to do something else in this situation, I don't want to know the hell that Kaori could unleash against you. He paused to let Naruto think for a moment, and then looked at Momo. I'll bet you're wanting to get back home, huh? Momo nodded longingly, homesick and ready to put this whole nightmare away. Yes, I definitely do. Well, if you would, could I offer you a meal or a bed to stay tonight? I know you must have people back in District 1 who miss you, but considering the circumstances, I think it might be better for you to wait and leave in the morning. Yeah, he's right, Naruto agreed. If you were to leave now, you might run into those S again. The girl thought for a long moment. Well, Lil Shiro is probably worried sick, but I am a bit hungry, Momo said sheepishly, and Naruto just laughed. The blonde dragged the girl over to the kitchen area of the bar and offered to cook her several kinds of ramen, each flavor he claimed to be his favorite. Tadashi watched him interact with Momo and chuckled, wondering how long it had been since Naruto had spoken to a girl near his age. The olden owner turned away from the two of them, heading back into the main bar area to hopefully do some damage control from the fight earlier. When the ramen was finished, he and Momo sat down to eat. You might be one of the first people I've met who eats because they are hungry, Naruto commented, slurping up a bite of noodles. A lot of people eat because it's sociable, but you seem to just be really hungry. She nodded. Yeah. It's because I have a bit of Riryoku. Not much, but enough that I have to eat to survive. You should see Lil Shiro, because he eats like a pig. Riryoku? Asked Naruto, confused. He'd heard the term before, but no one had clarified what it meant before. What's that? You don't know what spirit energy is, Naruto? How long have you been dead? He thought about it. How long had it been, exactly, since he died? You know, I don't even know, he explained, suddenly realizing that he had absolutely no clue. But no, I really do not know what that is. Momo swallowed another bite and took a sip of her milk. Well, usually souls who come to Soul Society do not have much spirit energy. When they have a substantial amount, they age and have to eat and fight to survive, while a majority of souls are just content. If you have to eat, you probably have some Riryoku of your own. She paused for a moment, collecting her thoughts. As for what Riryoku actually is, you'd probably have to ask a Shinigami. I've never really understood it myself. He pondered her statement for a while. He had seen the black-clad, sword-carrying guards patrolling the streets of Hakuten on several occasions, but he'd never really ever spoken to one. Maybe he should speak to one now. Something else she had said caught his attention. Who's Lil Shiro? That's a strange name. The girl giggled. Lil Shiro is just a nickname I gave him. Toshiro's a little kid back in Junonin, probably looks to be 10 or 11. We've been really good friends for years. Naruto smiled. I guess you want to get back to him so he won't worry too much, huh? She laughed. Funny thing is that he's not the type of guy who would admit that. He'll probably say, I wasn't worried about you at all, Momo. I know you can take care of yourself. She looked up from her bowl of ramen, meeting Naruto's glance. Thank you for what you did. I don't know what I would do if you hadn't saved me. Momo looked like she might cry, but Naruto clapped her on the shoulder. It was no big deal. No harm done in the long run, right? The best part is that you're completely safe, the blue-eyed blonde said with a beaming grin. He finished off the bowl of ramen with a loud slurping, and it was enough to make both of them laugh. Hinamori still had half of her bowl left, but Naruto was done already. Maybe you'll be giving Lil Shiro's appetite a run for its money, Momo said with a small laugh. As soon as Momo was finished, Naruto headed upstairs to show her to a room where she'd stay the night, before she would leave in the morning to go back to District 1. It was only a few hours' walk at a good solid pace, but even then, Naruto hated how slow he had to go when he went on delivery or pick-up runs for Tadashi. He may have enjoyed the scenery as he walked through the outdoors, but he wished that there was a quicker way. When he closed the door for Momo to make herself comfortable, he nearly ran right into Tadashi. Oh, hey Tadashi. I just showed Momo her room for the night. Everything calmed down now? Naruto noticed how gaunt that his boss looked right then, but he was not sure why. Yeah. Everything has calmed down. I was talking with some people outside shortly after the fight, and let me just give you the message now. You'll need to head to Kaori's later tonight. Probably 9 or 10 tonight, due to other things going on. Kaori wishes to speak to you about what happened. The boy's reassuring grin slowly faded when he realized what that could mean. What do you think she'll say? I don't know, Naruto. But if I were in her situation, I don't think I would be very lenient. After all, you provoking a fight in the middle of the bar was not exactly ideal employee behavior. To be honest, you're lucky I didn't fire you on the spot. His eyes widened. Tadashi had never made comments like this, never anything this bad. Usually it was all in good fun, but now Naruto really had pissed him off. But Momo was going to be RA. I know, Tadashi said, cutting the boy off. I know what was going to happen. I'm extremely glad that it did not happen. But that could have been handled in a better way that did not include getting into a fight in the middle of the bar. Got it? Good. Naruto nodded nervously. Yes, sir. I understand. He frowned and headed back to where he left the cleaning supplies, hoping to get the job done that he had intended to finish, all before the trouble with Daichi. He was about an hour into cleaning one of the largest suites in the inn when there was a knock on the door. Had Tadashi booked this room since he started to clean? Coming, he shouted as he sat down the mop and headed to the door. He opened it, and was surprised to see Momo. Hey, how's the room? She smiled. It's fine, thank you. Would you like some help? I could help you finish. Naruto was going to decline, but the expression on her face made him want to reconsider. Okay. I don't see why not. I helped you earlier, so I suppose this is you paying me back. You don't have to, though, if you don't want to. She shook her head. No, I do want to. I don't have much better to do, and I really do want to help out. He smiled. In that case, come on. I cannot stand cleaning, so with you here, maybe it won't be so boring and annoying. Happy to oblige, she said with a chuckle, heading into the room to help him. Naruto was correct. Cleaning was much better with Momo around, as it gave him something to focus on besides the fact that he was cleaning. He was not too sure what Tadashi would think about allowing her to take over some of the work, but he would explain that to his boss later, if the man asked. He just wanted to enjoy this girl's presence, as she was very pleasant to work with. Maybe if he talked to Tadashi, he could get her a job here in the inn, even though it's in Hakuten. They shared stories of their adventures in the afterlife. Hinamori telling Naruto all about Jidenbo, the giant who guards the western gate into the Siriidai. Naruto shared many stories about some good-natured pranks he pulled on some of the patrons in the bar, like the time he spiked someone's tea with sake just to see what would happen. Both seemed to really enjoy each other's company. How would you feel about working here long time? Asked Naruto, curious and a bit hopeful. I know it's not home, and Toshiro and his grandmother may not like it. But I thought I might offer, you know? She frowned as she considered it. Naruto immediately started to berate himself for even suggesting it, because it seemed selfish and misguided. Well, the truth is, Naruto, I would miss home far too much to think about staying here. It's not that I wouldn't miss you when I return, because you seem like a kind, funny person. I just don't think I could stay. He put up a smile to hide his slight disappointment. He knew it was probably a rotten idea, because they barely knew each other anyway. But after protecting her, something seemed to awaken in Naruto, a resolve to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Spirit power or not, Momo did not strike him as someone who could take care of herself if something were to happen. It's okay, he said, grinning. No big deal. I guess he stopped for a moment, breathing in and out. I haven't exactly had many friends in my time here, since I live alone up on the mountain. That's how I like it most of the time, but I guess I get lonely some of the time. There aren't many others around my age, and I guess it's hard to get close to people who are younger or older. Momo nodded, understanding where he was coming from. Lil Shiro looks like he's 5 or 6 years younger than I do, but we practically grew up together because we were neighbors. He and his grandmother are some of the only people that I'm close to. I can relate to that feeling. With that, they moved on to more pleasant topics, making each other laugh with more storytelling. Well, you seem to have a lot of stories about Rakangai, but do you have any stories about your past life, Momo? The boy asked, curious if she remembered anything about where she came from. Momo shook her head. No, I really don't. Lil Shiro doesn't either, but his grandmother does. Do you, Naruto? The boy shook his head regretfully. No, I wish I did though. I wish I remembered where I was from and what happened to me when I died. The girl nodded, wishing for the same thing. Why do you think we don't remember? He asked. Me, you, and Toshiro? Is it because we have Riryoku? Hinamori shrugged. I don't know, but that's the best guess I've come up with. Seems like a pretty great disadvantage if you asked me. Naruto and Momo kept up the cleaning for the next few hours, until around 8 o'clock that night. They left to eat and enjoyed a meal together while Tadashi watched, before it was time for Naruto to go and meet with the town elder, Kaori. Momo had kept quiet all during dinner, and there was obviously something on her mind. Naruto, I'm sorry that you're in this mess because of me. She was sullen and depressed, her head down, and seemingly unable to rise. He smiled sympathetically and said, No way, Momo. It's not your fault, believe it. It's Daichi's fault, him and his loser lackeys. She seemed to perk up, but she was still sad. Tadashi put his hand on her shoulder. Naruto and Daichi have never gotten along before this, and it's been a long time coming. Daichi should never have attempted what he was going to do. Naruto should have attempted to save you without fighting, like finding one of the Shinigami on patrol and reporting it. But do not think for a minute that you had any part in the blame. Hinamori smiled sadly, thinking over his words. Thank you, sir. You're absolutely welcome, Tadashi said. Naruto, you'd better hurry to the compound. If you don't get there soon, whatever punishment you get could be more severe. Naruto nodded, standing up from the table. He adjusted his tunic and tied his obi, before bowing slightly to both of them. See you when I get back. Tadashi and Momo bowed back to him. Remember my advice from earlier, Naruto. The blonde waved back his acknowledgement as he left the room, leaving Tadashi and Momo alone. The owner of the inn stood and walked out of the room into the main bar, beckoning Momo to follow. Tell me what you make of this, Miss Hinamori. She nodded and followed him. He pointed out the obvious crack in the wooden floor, about 3 inches wide and 5 feet long. She remembered that was where Naruto had shoved Daichi, and her eyes widened. She explained that detail to Tadashi, who could only ponder for a moment. So Naruto did that with just brute strength? Asked the boss, cursing under his breath as he thought about how expensive it might be to fix or replace. Broke the solid wood like it was nothing? Momo was just as amazed as he was. It was interesting to her that Naruto had so much spiritual power locked inside that he could literally do that much damage, because it had nothing to do with muscle mass. Naruto was by no means scrawny, but he was not built like a brick wall. Has he ever showed anything like this before? Asked Momo, entertaining the possibility that it could have been a coincidence. Tadashi looked away in thought before raising a finger to make a point. Well, a few years back, I dismissed it. But Naruto may have been the one to snap the entire bar counter in half, because I remember him being angry at something that day. He showed her the wooden counter replacement. I was able to replace it with an identical one for pretty cheap. But if Naruto has been breaking these things so easily, what does that mean, Miss Hinamori? She explained what she knew about Ryatsu and Riryoku, thinking that if Naruto had never heard of it, Tadashi probably had not either. If she did not live so close to the Tsurugi, she probably would not know that much about it either. So Naruto has some powers of his own? Asked Tadashi. Yeah, I think so, she explained. That could be very dangerous, he muttered, not sure what he thought about this development. Naruto was not the type to let something like this go over his head, but he had a temper problem. With Naruto's tendency to get overexcited, couldn't these powers be a bad thing? I'm not sure if they'd be bad, but I guess they could be, she said. Back in District 1, I've heard that souls with some Riryo could go on to become Shinigami, through the Shino Academy. Tadashi pondered that for a moment. You have to eat as well, don't you, Miss Hinamori? Have you ever experienced any kind of special abilities like Naruto? Not me, no, Momo replied. But one of my friends from back home, he has this really cold presence. I don't think he notices, and I've never brought it up. But he sometimes makes the room colder without even trying. Is that weird? Weird? Tadashi asked. Kind of. Hard to comprehend all this Shinigami, spiritual power business. Momo laughed. I agree with you there. Have you ever considered becoming a Shinigami yourself? Or your friend Toshiro? Hinamori had to admit that the idea sounded great, but she did not think she could ever be good at it. No. I don't think that would be the right fit for me. And Toshiro is blissfully unaware that he even has abilities, if that's even what they are. He's just a kid who doesn't like responsibility too much, whether he denies it or not. Tadashi just smiled in confirmation. Well, if that's what you think, that's fine, but don't doubt yourself either. You could turn out to be very capable if you decided to do it. He picked up a clipboard and began running through an inventory list. Would you like to help me out a little while we wait for Naruto to come back? I've got some things to before we close in a couple of hours, and I need to give him his pay. Momo just nodded, her mind filled with images of strong battles and swords and tough training. Sure. I'd love to. The town elder compound, for as long as Naruto had ever known, had been inhabited by members of Kaori's family. Daichi had died and had been assigned into Kaori's household by sheer luck, but most of the people who lived there were direct blood relatives of Kaori herself. The building was the grandest building in all of Hakuten, located in the direct middle of the town and surrounded completely by a 12-foot-high wall. It really did scream of wealth, the most expensive building that Naruto had ever seen. The place had patrol guards, regular souls armed with various weapons like katana or bows or spears. They were all dressed in heavy, almost samurai-like armor, each more ornate than the last. Trees lined the inside of the courtyard, Naruto noticed as soon as the guards let him in. One of them escorted Naruto through the yard and up to the flight of stairs leading to the gate. This is Naruto, the boy Kaori needed to see, the escort muttered to the main guard, a stumpy man who looked to be a little too old to be standing guard at a complex like this. The man simply nodded, probably having heard all about the fight that had taken place. Naruto had been nervous before, but he had never been more nervous than this exact moment, right before the door opened to the main building. As it anciently creaked open, he had to fight the urge not to cringe. He was ushered inside, just as before. They rounded 3 hallways before the entrance to Kaori's office appeared. Everything in this place screamed of money, and Naruto could not help but marvel at how Hakuten could ever have this much revenue. He knew that the districts closest to the Tsurugi were generally richer, but this was obscene. The luxuries of being in charge, he figured. The escort did not say a word as he opened the door to the office, introduced Naruto to the village elder, and then left before Naruto even had time to say, "What?" Kaori was a short, lumpy old woman with a bit of a stomach, but her expensive red and white robes made up for it. She had a sour look on her face, a sure sign that he was in deep trouble. Naruto, Kaori began, gesturing for him to sit across the desk from her. So I've heard an interesting and appalling story about you from my grandson Daichi. Remembering Tadashi's warning, he remained silent before he said something that could make him worse off in the end. Kaori looked him in the eye before clearing her throat. He claims that you came up to him in Tadashi's inn, interrupted his good time, and shoved him to the ground. You then proceeded to beat him until Tadashi could pull you off of my poor grandson. Do you have anything to say for yourself? The woman spat the last question, disgusted at the implications. He had to fight not to comment, not to directly argue with everything she was saying. Is that all he said? Did he explain to you why I did this? Kaori did not budge, and Naruto started to realize that he may not win this argument. No, I'm afraid that was all he said. Is there something more? Naruto started to rehash his side of the story for the second time that day, including Momo's end of the story as well. Strangely enough, Kaori began to smile halfway through the story, which unnerved him completely. What's so funny? I'm telling you the truth. The old woman grew upset that Naruto had the audacity to yell at her, and Tadashi's words to be respectful echoed in his mind. Quite frankly, Naruto, I simply do not believe your far-fetched tales. I've heard enough of your pranks from many concerned citizens to know that I cannot take what you say with a grain of salt. It's fairly obvious that you are using these falsities to malign the character of the village elder's grandson. Did you think this would be funny, Naruto? Did you think this would bring you enjoyment, trying to make Daichi out to be some kind of common criminal? If that's the case, you're even more broken than I originally imagined. Naruto was speechless, the office completely silent. Kaori stood from her chair and looked out of the window, watching the crescent moon up above. This is just not true. Those pranks were just jokes that never harmed anyone, and Daichi and his friends were going to hurt poor Momo. I could not stand idly by and let her get raped. Naruto was getting so angry that he gripped the chestnut-colored desk, his knuckles turning white. Kaori did not turn his gaze. There's a flaw in your lie, Naruto, a flaw that ensures that I cannot believe a bit of what you are saying. She turned to look at him, placing both of her palms flat on the desk and trying to look intimidating. Daichi did not leave the compound last night. He was here all night, resting after a long day of chores. I had a few of my guards check up on him. What terrifies me more than anything, Naruto, is that you do not live in town. You live all alone, up on the mountain, away from social interaction, she explained. And what makes matters worse is that boss of yours, Tadashi. He hardly leaves that inn to keep it barely running. It does not offer as much money as he claims, and he's often in debt. I worry that you have no positive relationships in this town, and it has probably affected your mental state. My mental state? Kaori nodded in confirmation. Yes. You seem to not know where your lies begin and where the truths end. She walked around the desk and placed her hand on the back of his chair, kneeling down to meet him face to face. Naruto, did you kidnap a girl from District 1 last night, hoping to blame it on Daichi? What? No. Not at all. Kaori continued as though nothing had ever been said. I had to admit I was a bit shocked when you mentioned this as part of your story, because Daichi made no mention of it. How noble of him to want to protect you. He was the one who questioned you about this girl, wasn't he? He caught on to your plans, and you fought him to silence him, didn't you? He must have been so scared of your revenge that he did not mention the real reason to me, in hopes that you would go easy on him. The blonde was just shocked. Lady Kaori, you are way off base here. Have you lost touch with reality? Daichi was caught sneaking in illicit drugs earlier this year, but did you punish him? No. Lies. Kaori slammed the armrest on Naruto's chair, shocking him enough that he reflexively gripped the desk harder. He looked down at his fingers, but he couldn't find them. It looked as though his fingers had submerged into the wood of the desk, so he hurriedly pulled them out in shock, hoping Kaori was distracted enough not to notice. Sure enough, there were 5 finger-sized indents in the wood, like he had stuck his fingers into a vat of butter. Gather what belongings you have in town, and just leave. You're banished from Hakuten. Exiled. Whichever term you prefer. Don't ever expect to be able to come back again, and don't think you'll have a home up on the mountain left to come back to. Banished? Seriously? He asked incredulously. There's no punishment for Daichi at all? He was being brave, something that you could use a bit more nowadays. I expect you to be gone from District 3 by first light tomorrow. Naruto was livid, but he had to try to keep his cool. He was not going to be able to return to Tadashi, or see the mountain ever again. He headed into the inn one last time and was thankful that it was not closed yet. His shifts usually did not go into nighttime, but now was a different story. The place was nearly empty, and it made him wonder about the validity of Kaori's statement that Tadashi was always in debt. They seemed busy enough most of the time, but were they really? He headed behind the counter and into the back room, hoping to find Tadashi and Momo, and maybe even some supplies to bring along. And food. He had no clue where he was going to go, but he would not be able to return here. That was the only certainty that he had. Naruto? You're back, Momo said, smiling and scanning his face for any idea of what happened. She seemed to slow down when she noticed his not-so-happy face. What happened? He frowned even more, all efforts to pack lost. He sat down at the table, head in his hands and running through his hair. That bitch banished me. Made me an exile, like some kind of common criminal. What? Asked Momo, her face quivering in surprise. I don't understand. What did she say? He turned to her for a moment, studying her face. Then he explained the whole story, with as much detail as possible. He grew angrier and angrier with every single sentence. Momo was in outrage, and she grabbed Naruto's hand to yank him up and onto his feet. Come on, Naruto, let's go prove her wrong. I'm your evidence, my story will match up to yours. They'll have to believe you. The blonde shook his head. No, she won't change her mind. All the important people in this town have their heads so far up Daichi's asses that they would never believe me. She made me out to be the psycho loner rapist, Momo, and no matter how much I beg and plead, it won't change her opinion of me. Her sentencing has always been final. Momo huffed, crossing her arms in anger. I won't give up, Naruto, and you should not give up either. Come with me. He reluctantly followed her into the hallway, toward Tadashi's office. Tadashi was surprised to see them both, and after explaining the whole story, Momo asked, Surely there's something we can do. Tadashi wiped the tear from the corner of his eye, surprising Naruto. He was not exactly an emotional man, so to see that side of him was strange. Oh, Naruto, I'm afraid, Miss Hinamori, that there's nothing that we can do. Kaori really is a stubborn old bat. He walked over to Naruto and wrapped the blonde in a one-armed hug. Let's get you something packed, kiddo. Naruto solemnly followed him, leaving Momo there with a complete lack of understanding. She began to cry as she walked behind them, trying to keep a brave face but feeling like this was all her fault. Momo, there's nothing to feel sorry about, Naruto said. What's done is done. He really did believe that philosophy, that you couldn't change the past. He believed that you could change your future, if you just persisted long enough to see a change. It was one of the many factors of why he never gave up. Was he giving up, though? Was Momo right? Had he accepted his fate as being banished? Was he angry about this, angry enough to try to change it? The boy sighed. I just don't get it, Naruto, Hinamori began. How can you not blame me? I was the one who got you into this mess in the first place. Daichi and his friends. I should have had the power to fight them off. What the heck kind of use is it to have spiritual power if you can't use it to defend yourself? Naruto looked at her curiously. It's not like you've been trained on how to use it though, Momo, if that's even how it works. Stop worrying about it. I'll be fine. No, you won't, she argued, wiping at her eyes. Where will you go? What will you do? Before Naruto could even answer, Momo suddenly brightened up. I know. You could come and live with Toshiro and me, in Junonin. Oh, it would be great. I could introduce you to Jidenbo. I think you'd get a kick out of him. You'd really like Lil Shiro's grandmother, and there's a great ram dash. Naruto shook his head, although he gave it a lot of thought. No, that's just what Hakuten would expect. They know you came from there, and they may stir up trouble trying to find me there. It's too obvious. Tadashi, who had kept relatively quiet as he sorted through some light food to pack for both Naruto and Hinamori, finally turned to face them. Maybe not, Naruto. If they expected you to expect them to find you there, then you could hide there after all. And besides, I don't think they'll be out for blood or something, Naruto. Kaori is not likely to waste the manpower on it, and the Shinigami have better things to do than that. He paused, putting a bag of rice into both bags. You could easily go with Momo, Naruto. All it takes is the first step, and it sure would take some of the worrying off of me, if I knew Miss Hinamori was there to take care of you. And you would be close enough that I could visit, as long as things calmed down on this side. Of course I would take care of you, she said, not exactly sure why that statement made her blush. Naruto did not seem to take notice of it though. And he's right, Naruto. They aren't that far away, so your former boss could visit you. The blue-eyed soul thought for a long moment, curious if this could work. It definitely was better than not having a plan at all, but drifters moved in and out of districts all the time. He wouldn't attract much attention if he went by himself, and he knew how to live off the land for the most part. But Momo and he had been good to each other, and she seemed genuinely excited at the possibility. He took a deep breath in and out, letting it calm him down. He batted away the stray thought of why souls even needed to breathe, before finally agreeing. Fine, I'll do it. Where would I stay while I'm there? Momo thought for a moment before saying, with Toshiro's grandmother, of course. You and Lil Shiro are not that different in age, so you'd get along, I think. And I live really close by, so it'll work out just fine. You sure she wouldn't mind? Momo shook her head, her brunette bangs swaying as she did. No, she loves guests, and you have a great personality. She wouldn't mind at all. Then it's settled then, Tadashi said, trying to be chipper but his expression said otherwise. Naruto could tell when he was upset. They spent the next half hour going through some other supplies for 2 packs, just in case they needed them between Hakuten and Junonin. When Tadashi handed them both the bags, they thanked him together. Alright, so you guys are going to stay here tonight and then head out in the morning, just before dawn, right? Asked Tadashi for the umpteenth time. They both nodded. Yes, sir, Naruto said, smiling. The boss smiled back and hugged both of them quickly, before handing Naruto the last thing on his mind. A bag of coins, the paycheck. No, I won't need it, Tadashi. What if the money doesn't work? The older man scoffed. Naruto, it's only a few hours away. And ken are acceptable everywhere. If you say so, the blonde muttered, taking the bag and putting it in his back pocket. I'm off to bed. I'm planning on sleeping in tomorrow, so don't wake me as you head out. He winked before adding, I'm not sure if this will work out for you 100%, Naruto, but please be careful. Both of you. They both nodded and then did a small bow to him. He bowed back, and with that, the goodbye was over. Tadashi left them in the back room in order to close the bar. Naruto wanted to really thank him properly, to say a good long goodbye. But he reminded himself that Tadashi might could visit him someday. Naruto awoke to the sound of the alarm going off next to him, about an hour before dawn. He stretched and sighed, opening his eyes wider before getting up. He walked into the bathroom, hoping to get his face washed, do something with his hair. He stared at his reflection in the mirror, his body looking haggard and tired. Dark circles stretched under his eyes, and his face looked dry and flaky. He reached up with water and splashed his strange, whisker-like cheek marks before taking in another deep breath. He looked at his bare torso and abdomen, wondering why it felt so empty when he looked at his belly button. Like something was missing, almost. He washed his hair quickly, throwing on his clothes from yesterday. He wished that he could go back to his place and pack a bit of clothes, or at least change, but this would have to do. He hurried downstairs, meeting Momo in the kitchen area of the bar. She was already dressed and looked a lot better than he did this morning, but that was not saying much. They ate a quick bite to eat, mostly talking over their plans and more about Aim, Toshiro's grandmother. I guess we'd better go, Momo said, standing and grabbing her pack off of the floor. I wish I could thank Tadashi properly, but I'm sure I'll get to do so eventually. Naruto nodded. Of course. Let's get moving. The two of them left the inn, Naruto locking the door behind him and placing his key on the mat. He did so without much hesitation, but he still felt oddly sad about that. He walked on with Momo in the relative dark, gray light just before dawn. He did not run from the only place he had ever really known. He walked out comfortably, Momo at his side. He passed the last building on the left, turned and looked at the convoluted street, almost barren and devoid of people. You okay? Asked the girl at his side. He nodded. Yeah. I think I'll be okay. Oddly enough, this is kind of exciting. Refreshing. Like a new start. Maybe it won't get boring so fast this time around. Hinamori laughed. Let's hope not. Naruto and Momo walked past the limits of the district, heading east. He imagined that if he climbed high enough, he would be able to see the walls of Siriidii on the horizon. Come on, Toshiro, give it back. And tell me, idiot, why I should. Because it's mine. Who said? Aim made it for me as a gift. And I'm supposed to care because. Shut up, Toshiro. It wouldn't even look good with your stupid hair. Oh, look at Naruto, the fashion expert. Naruto huffed, wanting to just punch the daylights out of the little brat for taking the bandana that Aim had worked so hard to make. He stopped for a moment, trying to give Toshiro a false sense of security, before lunging at the kid again. Toshiro laughed, pushing himself to his feet and leaping into the air, just in time so that Naruto smacked into the ground, a cloud of dust billowing from his body. The brat chuckled again, before running toward the town at full speed, hoping that Naruto would follow. The blonde boy spat and brushed himself off, before dashing in the direction Toshiro had went. He heard Aim weakly call out for them to be careful, but Naruto was past that point. He'd do just about anything to get that damn bandana back. He spotted Toshiro, just as the silver-haired boy clumsily knocked into a merchant, causing a domino effect that left a lot of people covered in fruit and trinkets. Naruto sped up and leaped over the mess, inciting an angry yell from the merchant and the crowd. Don't scream at me. Toshiro's the one who did it, Naruto thought, an angry gleam in his eye. I'll get that kid if it's the last thing I do. He sped off again, passing through one of the side streets and momentarily passing Momo as he did. The girl whipped her head around, calling out to him, but he ignored her. Maybe she'd follow him, help him catch that brat. Naruto stopped long enough to catch his breath, looking up at the edge of town and the beginning of the woods surrounding it. Somewhere past that was District 2 and District 3, and he got an unnecessary moment of nostalgia. He pushed that down, hurrying into the woods after the silver-haired demon that plagued his existence. He pushed past the trees, touching one of the branches as he passed with his fingers. He didn't notice, but the branch seemed to bend at his touch. He broke through a clearing, seeing a flash of silver ahead. It was enough of a distraction that he didn't notice the very steep bank decline into the lake below, and his entire body lost touch with the ground. He tumbled down the side of the bank painfully, causing him to cry out in pain. Before he knew it, he was lying face down in the water, his thoughts filled with revenge. He stood from the shallow depths, clothes covered in mud and leaves and water. His rage and embarrassment had reached a new high. "It's a good thing I took this from you," muttered a cool voice. "Because if I hadn't, you'd have gotten it all wet and dirty." Naruto took a deep breath, a reprieve before he turned all of his attention on the bastard who did this to him. The silver-haired boy with bright blue-green eyes was holding the white and orange bandana between his fingers, twirling it around his index finger. He was standing at the top of the bank, his expression smug, and Naruto wanted to scream so hard that he could barely stand it. "Hitsugaya, I'm going to kill you. That's all there is to it. Prepare to be covered in mud? I believe you have that handled, don't you?" Naruto was about to charge up the bank when he heard something rustling through the bushes. The two boys looked over to see Momo, who was positively confused at what was going on. When she saw Naruto, her entire expression was filled with shock. "Are you all right? What happened?" "Lil Shiro over there stole the bandana," he muttered angrily, brushing the mud off of his tunic and ignoring Toshiro's reminder that the nickname wasn't his name. "I'm fine, just cold and wet and angry." And with that last word, Toshiro just could not hold it in any longer. He cackled into the sky, loud enough Naruto was certain that everyone in the Tsurugi could hear him. Hinamori, trying to keep her composure, eventually caved and started to laugh as well, which naturally caused Naruto to realize the hilarity of the situation. His anger abated, he started to belly laugh so hard that he nearly fell back into the muddy shallow water. After a few moments of that, Toshiro calmly climbed down the bank, removing his sandals to join Naruto in the lake. He was kind enough to lay the bandana on the limb of a tree, where it wouldn't be ruined. Hinamori, noticing the two of them, began to undo her kimono. "No! What are you doing?" Naruto exclaimed, his eyes bugging out of his head. He turned around, looked to the corner of his eye and saw that the silver-haired brat was still watching her. He waded over to him, still turned away from her, and plunged his head under the water. The blonde noticed how cold the other boy's skin felt, thinking that that was not exactly normal. "It's no big deal, Naru," Hinamori replied, joining them in the lake. "I didn't want to get my clothes all yucky. See?" Naruto peeked through his fingers to see that she still had her underwear on, and she was thoroughly submerged with only her head and shoulders sticking out. "Fine. But warn us next time, all right?" Momo just laughed. Toshiro burst from the water, shouting for air. He then lunged at Naruto again, like some kind of silver, sloppy river monster, and the two of them wrestled and laughed. For the next 2 hours, the three of them splashed and swam and got covered in mud, not a care in the world. Toshiro did not seem to notice that he was making the water colder around him, but Naruto did not care. They already knew that the silver-haired brat had a lot of Riryoku, even if he didn't admit it himself. At the end of that, the three of them climbed out of the water and laid on a grassy hill overlooking the sparkling water. Momo tried to clean herself off in the shallow water, before joining them fully dressed. Naruto could only smile. He loved being out here in nature, and if he had time, he liked to come out here and take a nap under the trees. Sometimes, one of the others came with him, but usually it was just him. "This is my favorite spot," he muttered from the base of the oak tree, his head resting on a root. He could see the breaks in the foliage, the way the sun broke through the leaves to give them a soft yellow glow. It made him feel like he was at home. Toshiro was sitting up in the grass, watching the lakes push and pull, creating small waves. He breathed in the air, not usually taking this much time to care about sitting outside. Outside was where the other kids in the district were, and they all treated him like dirt, like they were scared of him. "This is nice," Momo muttered, running a dirty hand through her brunette bangs. She had climbed up a couple of branches and was lying perfectly balanced at a fork in a large branch. "I haven't done this in so long." The three of them just waited and enjoyed the feeling for a long time. It was impossible not to enjoy it, even if you weren't a nature person. Peaceful, calm, and homey. Just like Naruto liked it. "Aim is going to kill us when we get back, isn't she?" asked the silver-haired boy. "Nah, just you," Naruto said, laughing. "You did cause this mud and stuff, you know." He smiled. "Maybe. But you did clumsily fall into the lake." "Because I was chasing you." "And? You still shouldn't have fallen into the lake." Before it could turn into a much larger argument, Momo twisted towards Naruto and read his expression. So, how would you say the last 10 years have been? He thought about the decade. A decade since he was exiled from Hakuten. A decade since he was pleasantly accepted into Aim's home. About 8 years since Toshiro finally warmed up to him, despite his cold exterior. About 4 years since the Shibas moved into town and started monthly fireworks shows. They were gone now, but the three of them had shared a lot of good memories under those light shows. 3 years since he last saw Tadashi, who had come to visit them with news that Daichi had been arrested and charged with the rape of a different young girl. He hadn't told Hinamori about that, hoping to keep from bringing that up. It's been really good, he said with a smile. He felt completely relaxed with not a care in the world. I wish Aim was in better health though. If she hadn't started getting sick, then this would have been perfect. He solemnly looked up at the clouds, tracing one of them that almost looked like a raccoon with his eyes. Aim had been waning slowly, for no determinable reason. She was exhausted all the time, her bones looked frail and her skin was always pale. It bugged all three of them that they couldn't find a way to make her better, although sometimes Toshiro liked to pretend she wasn't sick. Today was one of those times. Oh, she'll be alright, you guys. Stop worrying so much. You can't deny that she looked awful this morning, Toshiro. There are some days when she's fine, and others when she looks like a walking corpse. Naruto tried not to notice the irony of the fact they were dead. The silver-haired boy sighed. You guys are depressing. Momo looked at him curiously. We're not depressing, Lil Shiro. You're such a stick in the mud sometimes that you don't notice what's happening around you. With the look on her face, Naruto wasn't sure if she was talking about Aim's illness or the latent Riryoku the boy had. Oh, Aim, stop with that talk about spirit stuff again, Toshiro muttered. And stop calling me Lil Shiro, bedwetter Momo. Hinamori just shook her head in disbelief, before looking at the two of them. I've been doing some thinking, you guys. I'm thinking that I may join the academy. Naruto's eyes widened. The academy? You want to become a Shinigami? I thought you said you didn't even want to try because you didn't think you'd be good at it. Well, today is a day that brings back good memories, and I thought I might just decide to make some more, she said with a smile. Let's all apply. We could all be in the same class and learn from the same teachers and be in the same school. No, Toshiro muttered. Too much stuff to do. Not enough time to do it. I'm not interested. What is all this stuff that you have to do, Toshiro? Asked Momo. Last time I checked, you don't exactly have much going on. I think it could be good for us. Naruto gave it some thought again, as Toshiro huffed that conversation away. He'd actually been considering doing it himself for a while, in the future, but he wasn't sure if he wanted to do so now. But Hinamori's expression was enough to at least make him reconsider. I've heard it's difficult though, Momo. Dangerous even. What if one of us got hurt? She sighed. We've all heard Jidenbo's war stories, Naruto. Most of them are made up anyway. He was never a member of a regular squad, he's always been one of the gatekeepers. It was like his family was bred for that exact thing, all giant and imposing. That doesn't mean it's not dangerous, argued Toshiro. Naruto's right for once. It could be too much for us to handle. The three of us? We're strong, capable people. We can handle anything they can throw at us, Momo said, beating her chest like an 8 for emphasis. Naruto had to laugh not to point out how hilarious that was. The blonde thought for another moment before sighing. I guess I'll think about it, but how would we get into the academy? Actually, where is the academy? It's on the outskirts of the Suriidii, not too far from the wall on the north side. We have to pass a test though to get in, and there are these checkpoints all along the walls where they do tests. We'd have to pass a test? Asked Toshiro, just to get in? I hate tests. She scoffed. You two are such party poopers. How do either of you know if you hate tests so much unless you remember tests from your past life? My hatred for tests is not bound to life or death. It will be forever lasting, said Toshiro, a serious and inexpressive frown stretched across his face. Hinamori rolled her eyes. You guys are impossible. I can't believe you don't want to do it. When Naruto saw how upset Momo was, he finally collapsed. Fine. I'll do it. When are we going to do it? Soon, Momo said. I'm not sure when, but the three of us will ask Jidenbo if he has any idea where the nearest testing station is or if we have to wait until a certain day. 3 of us? Asked Toshiro, surprised and looking almost offended. I'm not going to do this. If you two want to, go for it. I'm on my own here. Hinamori looked like she would argue, but Naruto gave her a look. She sighed, but was still excited about the possibility. In a strange way, so was Naruto. He was excited, even if a little hesitant. It couldn't be all bad, right? With Naruto's 10-year anniversary bandana securely in place, which he wore as a headband, he headed to meet Jidenbu outside the gate. Hinamori was supposedly already there, as far as he knew. Toshiro stayed behind with aim, taking care of her the best he could while his mind pondered his friends. Why would they commit themselves to this? Getting to the gate from District 1 took almost no time at all, since most of Junranin ran alongside the wall anyway. The walls to Tsurayuti were extremely tall, almost twice as large as Jidenbu was tall, and that was saying something. He caught sight of Momo standing outside the big western gate, called the White Way Gate. Jidenbu was also there, outfitted with his 2 axes and the standard black robe of a Shinigami. He was easily about 18 feet tall, his axes a proportionally large size. Naruto would never, ever mess with him. Naruto! The big goof bellowed. It was such a large and hearty sound. How've you been? Good, Jidenbu, how about you? Naruto asked, genuinely curious. Momo gave him a smile as he approached, finally catching up with them. Doing just fine, the man said, bulging his muscles in a way that made Naruto wonder if it was on purpose or by accident. Momo said that you guys had a couple of questions to ask me. Naruto nodded, but let Hinamori take the reins. Well, we were wondering what the selection process was like. Is there a specific time or place where we have to do it? The giant pondered, the hum creating enough vibration in Naruto's ears that he wondered if it was some kind of earthquake. It's been nearly 300 years since I've had to do any academy business, but I suppose that it's still the same. A spiritual energy demonstration and a written exam. He stopped to consider it a moment. I've let some potential students in recently, and they explained that the nearest testing center is located along the wall about an hour's walk to the north. It's not too far from here, and to get into Tsurayuti, you have to pass that exam and get the seal. Momo smiled. Oh, all right. Do you know if they are still accepting students right now, for the upcoming academic year next month? It's supposed to start in September, right? The giant nodded, his axe shaking behind his shoulder at the demonstration. Yep. If you pass, you'll get a spot in one of 2 classes, one for advanced and one regular. If you fail, you won't be able to take it again until next June through August. Momo nodded. Okay, thank you for the information. Yeah, you're awesome, Jidenbu. We'll take you out to dinner or bring you something good one day soon, alright? The giant seemed positively happy with that offer. Don't you two forget now, you hear? And good luck with the exam. The 2 of them left, deciding to just go ahead to the testing center that was supposed to be an hour away. Momo was talking a mile a minute about how excited she was and how much she was looking forward to. She wanted something new to happen in her life, and quite frankly, Naruto could not blame her. I'm worried, Momo. I have never been very good at written tests. The girl frowned. Oh, hogwash. It's not that hard. You'll do just fine. Naruto did not feel like arguing, he just let Hinamori's positivity try to drown out his own negativity. She was excited enough for the both of them to do well, and he fully expected to do just that. The testing station was barren of activity, but it was built directly into the wall that made up the great city's defenses. It looked a little bit barren, though like no one was there. Momo dragged them up to the counter fast enough that the teller was so shocked to see newcomers that the strange glasses she was wearing were nearly knocked off. Hi, ma'am, we'd like to take the exam. The teller looked over both of them for a moment before smiling. I suppose that we can get you 2 situated soon. You're lucky because this is the last day of regular testing. Wow, we cut it close, didn't we? Asked Momo, a surprised look on her face. Naruto just laughed. They filled out and signed quite a bit of paperwork and had to do a forced blood sample to get themselves into the system, before the teller could let them through to the testing site. When the clerk was done, she gestured to the door behind her. All right, the 2 of you will go through the double doors behind me. From there, you'll take a left until you see another hallway. Go down there and the first door on the right is where you need to go. Good luck. Naruto and Momo bowed to her, thanking her for her hospitality, before heading to the room she referenced. When they were certain they had found it, the 2 prospective students headed inside. The room was like a large auditorium, but it was nearly devoid of activity. There were about 3 others sitting in the front row of the large auditorium and an older man, sitting on the edge of the stage. The chairs were like ones you would see in college, with a sliding panel used for a writing surface. Naruto had no clue where he knew that from, and it was actually physically disturbing him that he could not remember where he learned that. Oh good, the person on the stage said as they wandered in. More future students. Come on up and get this packet and a pen. They did just as he said, finding seats on the front row alongside the others. He gave them both a look and said, "At least one desk between the two of you, please." Naruto shifted over one seat, wondering how that would make a difference. "All right. Who I am is not important, but the test you are about to take is." Naruto grinned. "But sir, don't I deserve to know the name of the person who's about to kill me?" Momo reprimanded him with a look, but the instructor just laughed. "A joker, huh?" the teacher asked, laughing. "That won't get you anywhere inside the walls of the academy, so you'd better quit it now. No one inside is able to understand the beauty of humor like I can." The blonde boy gave him a puzzled look before shrugging. The instructor went over a few rules first, most of which Naruto would have understood on his own. And then they were allowed to break the seal, open the booklet, and turn to the first page. Name the afterlife. Naruto wondered why that first one was so simple, so he wrote out the obvious answer. The Soul Society. Who founded the 13 court guard squads? The blonde cursed himself for not knowing this one. Had Jidenba ever mentioned it to him? Oh, Yamajin Ryuki. That had to be right. What are the 3 possible paths a graduating student can take? Naruto only knew one, and that was from the previous question. He wrote that down and continued to the next question, hoping for partial credit. If a Zanpakuto can demonstrate 1000 kilojoules of power in its Shurikai state, typically, how many kilojoules can it produce in its Bankai state? Use the following equation. Naruto's eyes widened, not even able to read that equation. He skipped that one and looked through the rest of the test. Most of them were simply not possible to answer. He looked through the corner of his eye to see Momo writing answers down to almost every question, and it completely upset him that he was unable to do so. They should have studied more or something. After an hour of mental torture, Naruto was saved when the buzzer finally went off. The exam proctor gave the blonde a knowing smirk, wondering if it had tortured the boy enough. He collected the tests, setting them on the stage near the podium before opening his bag and presenting a tiny silver orb. It looked like it could have belonged on a pearl necklace, or maybe even as an earring, but he had never seen anything like it before. This is a miniature version of a Rishukaku core, developed by the Shinigami Research and Development Institute, which is also the answer to number 29, he muttered, eyeing Naruto again. This is designed to draw out the Ryatsu that you should possess, and if you have a good amount of control, you'll create a sphere of energy around your hands. Demonstrate good control, and you'll pass this portion. He handed the orb to a girl on the front row first. She stood in front of the stage, before looking at the orb a moment. The girl smiled and simply concentrated for a short moment, a glowing orb of light generating around her palms. Naruto could feel the Ryatsu pressing him into his seat, like some kind of oppressive feeling. The instructor nodded appreciatively, before passing the core to the next person. Some seemed to pass and keep their orbs relatively stable, but others were unable to even do the simplest thing. Then it came to Momo. Naruto wasn't sure if she would pass or not, because as far as he knew, she'd never learned to draw out spiritual pressure. Neither had Naruto, actually, so he was more than a little bit worried. The girl concentrated for a long moment, holding the spherical object within her palms. Her eyes closed and for a brief moment, Naruto felt a strange sensation on his skin, like something was pressing on it, warping it. He felt odd, more odd than the others because this felt familiar. It felt like an old friend. And then, with only another moment, the orb began to glow and a transparent blue ball of light surrounded Momo's hands. Naruto's jaw dropped at the display, because he didn't think she could do it. She'd never mentioned how to do it. The blue sphere was not perfectly solid, a bit shaky in places, but the teacher nodded at the display. Good going. He took the core from her and handed it to Naruto. Your turn. I don't know how to do it, he exclaimed, cursing himself. One of the other students laughed. Hinamori was about to remark how to help, but the instructor gave her a warning glance. Doesn't mean that you cannot try. The blonde nodded. If he wanted to have any chance at passing, he was going to have to do it. He focused on the ball within his fingers for a few seconds, before trying to shift his focus toward his inner self, whatever that meant. He inwardly shrugged, thinking that it sounded good either way, and tried again. He tried to find anything, remember anything that could give him access to his powers, but nothing happened. The instructor nodded, taking the orb away from him. Naruto was going to protest, but the man cut him off. A soul with no spiritual pressure does not belong as a Shinigami, young one. I have spiritual pressure. He started listing off things that he had done that were not explainable, like making cracks in the floor or melting his fingers through a wooden desk. It's too late, the teacher said, before turning to address everyone. If you would, could you step back into the clerk's office while I grade your performance? It should not take very long. The prospective students nodded, following his orders. The blonde boy sat next to Naruto, his mind swimming with worry about failure. Momo was supposed to give him a reassuring glance, but she looked as worried as he was. Don't worry. It's not as bad as you think, Momo tried, but he shook his head. Yeah, it is. Those other kids were all able to at least generate some sphere. I couldn't do any of that. I answered maybe 5 or 6 questions on that entire test, Momo. I failed it hard. He was just about to stand up, ready to leave. Where are you going? Asked Hinamori. Come on, there's no point in staying. I knew we shouldn't have done this. But Naruto, I think I passed. Momo declared, confused and offended that he would just get up and make both of them leave. The blonde got up and started walking toward the door. When he heard Hinamori try to follow, he waved her back. Don't worry about me, Momo. Meet me back at the house, alright? After you get your results. Momo nodded, still wondering what had gotten him so upset. Alright. And with that, he walked out of the room, heading back towards the town. Momo was utterly bewildered, not sure if she should follow him or stay. Eventually, she made up her mind and sat down, feeling conflicted all the while. Naruto heard Aim cough loudly, breaking him from his slumber. He turned his head to see her lying next to Toshiro, her body shivering and her breath literally like ice. He sighed, walking over to her to cover her up with his blanket, before slipping out of the room. It was almost dawn, and there was just enough light coming through the windows for him to see well enough. He read through the notes that he had forced himself to write after his 4th failed attempt at the exam. He'd been compiling them, editing them, changing them over the years so that he had a sort of cheat sheet. Momo had visited only a few days before, excited about her 5th year starting at the academy in just under a month. The two of them were happy for her, but Naruto would have been more happy if he were with her. He'd failed that damn test 3 times now, having skipped a year, and the next time to take it was coming up. He hated tests, hated them with a passion, but he wanted to join the academy now more than ever. He'd been trying for far too long to get in that he just had to pass this time. When he was done reading over some spirit energy calculations and equations, the steps to doing them memorized in his head, he stepped into the night air. He sat on the porch, feeling the air against his skin and hearing the calm sounds of morning. He sat there and thought long and hard about how to call out spirit energy. He managed to do it a few times, getting progressively better and better the more he did it. It helped for him to try to picture a certain shape in his mind and only that shape, allowing him to push all other objects aside and connect with his spirit energy. It usually worked nowadays, but it wasn't a perfect system. Nor was it as potent as it could be, as Jidenbo had explained once. But it was all Naruto had at the moment. Toshiro would be up soon, and Naruto pushed thoughts about the academy away when he heard the boy rustling indoors. The sun was beginning to rise, and the silver-haired boy stepped out of the house and joined him. The boy had not gotten much taller in the almost 15 years that he'd known him, but neither had Naruto. Momo, however, seemed to have aged last time she visited. He had no clue why that made sense. Hey, Toshiro, he muttered under his breath, putting the notes away once more. You know, you come out here every single morning to study, the silver-haired boy muttered. Or at least most mornings. What do you hope to accomplish? Haven't you embarrassed yourself enough with that damn test? Naruto was taken aback. Toshiro, why are you so upset? The boy sighed and nearly yelled out. Geez, I'm not upset with you. I think it's great that you are studying for it. I don't think it's great that you're obsessing. It can't be that damn hard to control your spirit energy. Can't be that hard, huh? Asked Naruto, curious and upset now. You try, smarty pants. Channel your Riryoka into the air around you. The boy accepted the challenge, his face snide. He closed his eyes and started to breathe deeply, before causing the air around him to burst with cold air. Some of it literally froze at the effort, falling around him in small flakes. Naruto could feel the potency of the display, feel his body react to the presence of his best friend. There, he said. You happy? Naruto was in awe. How did you do that? Me to know and for you to find out. Me to find out, huh? Asked the blonde, before suddenly tackling the other boy to the ground. The two of them laughed and laughed until Aim shouted out a weak muttering to stop and that they were giving her a headache. Sorry, Aim, Toshiro called out under his breath. We'll be more careful. The two of them settled down, sitting on the edge of the porch to relax. Naruto watched the other people pass them by, walking down the busy street of Genrin and going about their business. So you think I'm obsessing, huh? The other boy nodded. Yeah. Ever since Momo passed and you didn't, you go through these periods every year where you shut everyone else out to prepare, and then you've failed every time. Why do you think that is? Naruto considered it a moment, giving it some thought. I don't know. I know why, the silver-haired boy proudly declared, before pointing to Naruto's forehead. You're thinking too much. You have to learn when to let things go, and when to obsess. I'm not telling you to give up, but let it slide a bit. It's not the end of the world. You've got plenty of time. Toshiro was right. Naruto had been thinking too hard. His mistake the first time he went into that test was not preparing at all. His mistake going into the subsequent tests was preparing too much. It was like something clicked in Naruto's mind. So what do you need me to do to help you? Help me? You're going to help me pass? Hey, don't act so surprised. I tried to help you 2 years ago, but you shut me out every time. You did? Toshiro nodded. And you and Momo call me oblivious. Naruto turned to the sky, feeling the sun shining on his face. Okay. Tell me this. How did you learn how to channel your spirit energy? The boy considered it a moment. Channel is probably not the right word, since I never really learned to control it. I just learned how to call on it. How though? Toshiro sighed. I'm getting there. You're too impatient. It's not that hard to figure out. I just listened to Jidenbo telling Momo about it years back, before she even took the test. You just imagine feeling very, very emotional, a feeling that can make your entire body tighten up, kinda like a spring. Then you just imagine your mind letting the spring go, while still being upset. Don't let yourself hold back any longer. The blonde tried to do as Toshiro asked, sitting on the porch and trying to call on a specific emotion. He tried to force himself to be angry, to let his entire body react to that anger. After a moment, Toshiro visibly reacted by flinching away from him. There, the silver-haired boy said with a slight smirk. Was that really so hard? Naruto shook his head swimming with excitement. He now had a surefire way to call on spirit energy. He did not relax, allowing the feeling to progress to such a degree that he did not notice the adverse effects it was having. The columns holding the porch up started to splinter, and several people who had been milling about near their house started to run faster, as far away from the two strange boys on the porch. Okay! Toshiro yelled, breaking Naruto's reverie and the control over his Ryatsu, calming the feeling immensely. That's enough. You're going to snap the porch in half if you aren't careful. Oh. Right, he muttered sheepishly, surprised that he could do such a thing. I'm going to go to the market, Toshiro said, standing up. You want to come? Naruto shook his head. No, I'd rather head to the lake, clear my head. See you later. Toshiro nodded and headed towards town, leaving Naruto there to think. The blonde got up, told Ain where he and Toshiro were going, and then headed toward the lake at a leisurely pace. His mind was swimming with new information. Toshiro's trick to call on his Riryoku made perfect sense. He tried to do it before and had been able to, but it was difficult to do repeatedly. Now here he was, able to push and pull on the power inside him. It was almost scary, in an exciting and inviting sort of way. If he could learn to control it, to keep it there and mold it to the shape of the sphere, then he'd pass the second portion of the exam. Now if he could just concentrate on the first. He arrived at the lake, immediately finding his favorite tree and sitting at the fork of two large roots, his head against the bark. He practiced calling on his spiritual pressure, the results very favorable. The waves seemed to move faster in his presence, the wind blow harder and more rapidly. The tree almost seemed inviting, so much so that he did not even notice that he had fallen asleep. Damn that insufferable woman! Naruto's eyes opened with a start, his vision still swimming from his dream of a red-haired woman. He looked up to see Toshiro standing only a few feet away. What's wrong? Toshiro began a long spiel about going to a fruit stand, picking up a piece of fruit and getting treated horribly by the kiosk owner. I turned around, running right into the chest of some blonde woman wearing black robes and literally knocking me down. She tried to take up for me to the shopkeeper, but I ran off, too angry that the woman had knocked me down. He paused, upset. Doesn't that just bother you? Naruto pondered it for a moment. I don't understand why you're upset at her. You should be mad at the shopkeeper, if you asked me. She tried to help you. In fact, I think she might have been a Shinigami. Toshiro rolled his eyes. There's no way that a woman like that could be a Shinigami. She'd suffocate the first time she had to run with that damn chest of hers. Naruto just laughed, imagining it now. You ready to go back? It's almost getting dark, and I'm sure Aim is worried sick about us. Toshiro nodded. Yeah. Let's go. The blonde-haired boy shook his head free of the cobwebs, something having awoken him in the middle of the night. He looked over, shocked to see Toshiro completely and utterly bewildered, panting loudly. There was a brief moment when Naruto saw someone else, a blonde woman with a very large chest, but it was gone so fast that he wasn't even sure he saw what he saw. The younger boy was staring at Aim with a pained expression. "You okay?" Toshiro shook his head, before gesturing toward the door. Naruto got up and followed, and Toshiro looked just about everywhere outside for something. She just disappeared. Who disappeared? What's going on? Toshiro looked toward Naruto. That Shinigami woman from earlier. I woke up from one of my usual dreams, and she was there. She basically said that if I don't become a Shinigami, my Ryatsu would kill Aim. What? Naruto asked with shock. Toshiro explained the entire encounter with the mysterious woman, every detail. It suddenly made so much sense for the two of them. Aim was sick and getting skinnier because of Toshiro's latent spiritual pressure. It was unsettling, to say the least. I can't believe I have been hurting her all this time, he said with a grimace, wanting to practically hurt himself for being so stupid. I should have listened to you when you guys talked about this Riryoka that I supposedly have. I should have realized that the Ryatsu would have harmed her. Naruto shook his head. It's not your fault, buddy, and no one blames you. I've probably done my fair share of damage to her, to be perfectly honest, and that bothers me too. He stopped, looking at the sky for a moment. What are you going to do, Toshiro? When did you say those tests were held? The boy, his expression one of determination. Naruto smiled, all of this far too sudden, although he wasn't sure he should be happy about it. There's another one coming up today. I wasn't going to take this one, I was going to wait until next week so I could prepare a little more. Nope, you're coming with me to take the test later today, Toshiro said in the early morning moonlight. You're going to pass, I'm going to pass, and Aim is going to be just fine. Once that was decided, Naruto grinned. Momo is going to be so happy. Yeah? I finally caved on all the spirit stuff. Get over it. With Aim's blessing, Naruto and Toshiro headed to the testing site. By this point, the clerk running the front desk knew Naruto by name, but Toshiro still had to fill out a bunch of paperwork. The other boy was thankfully on file. Once that was settled, the two of them followed the clerk's directions into the testing site, the same auditorium Naruto had seen quite a few times already. Inside, the instructor was still the same man, but the place was a bit more full this time, with a little over 24 participants and 3 more instructors. Naruto found a place to sit and Toshiro followed, not sure about what was going to happen, but he had heard Naruto explain it enough times that he knew what to expect. The instructors handed out the sealed testing packets to each of the participants, explained the rules in the same way as before, and then told them to begin. Naruto read question after question. He answered question after question. There were several that he wasn't entirely positive about, like a question detailing the behind-the-scenes legal process to transfer from one division of the 13 court guard squads to another. Or the question about the noble families that make up Central 46. But there were a majority of questions that Naruto knew without a doubt, and it was enough that he was feeling very, very good about this. Toshiro was very quiet and seemed to pause a lot, making Naruto wonder what was going through his head. Toshiro had always been smart, scary smart really, so was this his method of thinking things through? Was he considering a bunch of answers or using his mind to decipher them? Naruto really had no clue, but he hoped that Toshiro would do well enough. The time limit went off, and Naruto happily gave his testing booklet to one of the other instructors, who turned it in to the guy in charge. Toshiro and Naruto exchanged a look that was really not sure, but both felt relatively good about this. The main instructor, whom Naruto had learned was Gengoro Onabara over the years, gestured to the bag to start the next step of the exam. The exam proctors split the groups by rows and were each handed a Ryushikaka core, the device to transmit spirit energy into a sphere. Naruto always enjoyed watching this section of the exam, because it was interesting to guess if a certain person would do well or not based on their appearance. Some were able to generate huge spheres, others small ones, and some none at all. Last exam, Naruto had managed to create a sphere that immediately exploded in his face, so the tension was very high for him this year. One girl, her hair wrapped up in buns almost like a panda, generated a sphere of blue light that fluctuated for several seconds, making everyone worry that it would explode, before it finally stabilized. She seemed utterly relieved, thanking the instructor. Then it was Naruto's group's turn, and Toshiro was up first. Naruto wanted to give him some last-minute words of encouragement, but he knew it wasn't allowed. Toshiro stepped up to the plate on stage and was given the tiny, white-blue sphere that looked almost like a pearl. All right, your turn, half pint, Onabara said, earning a glare from the younger kid. Toshiro immediately closed his eyes and focused on the orb between his palms. Naruto noticed the air get considerably colder, as though a cool breeze was emanating from the silver-haired boy's very presence. Immediately, a glow was emitted from the core, growing larger and larger until it was covering an area almost all the way to Toshiro's elbows. Everyone there was shocked, especially Naruto. Was Toshiro really holding that much power? Well, a bit of a show-off, huh? Asked the main proctor, laughing as he touched the large, stable sphere and admired how solid it was. Good job, kid, although it's a little cold. The sphere dissipated, and he grabbed the core from Toshiro and handed it to the next person. There were 3 more people after him, and Naruto gave Toshiro a congratulatory thumbs up. He passed that part of the exam beyond a shadow of a doubt, Naruto was sure. You again? Asked Onabara when it finally turned to Naruto. Haven't you given up already? Naruto shook his head. I'll never give up. I'm going to pass this test one day, and that day is today. The teacher smiled and handed him the core. Naruto immediately thought of the moment when Kaori banished him from Hakuten, the anger he felt in that moment enough still, several years later, to cause him emotional distress. He felt the power start to grow from within, but it wasn't enough just yet. He thought of the moment when he fought Daichi, defending Momo from a possibly terrible situation. Finally, the orb began to glow and absorb his spiritual pressure, before expelling it in an orb of energy. An extremely unstable orb of energy. It was nowhere near as large as Toshiro's, but it was shaking and vibrating more violently than the girl with the panda hairstyle. It made him think of how imbalanced the surface of a lake or a river was, and that imbalance was making him extremely scared. He did not want to repeat the year before, not going to stand for an explosion this time. He tried to take his anger and console it with thoughts of excitement, things that made him happy. Things like Tadashi giving him the job he had held for so long, like the day he was moved into Aim's home. The orb began to solidify, turning from an unstable, flickering sphere into a stable, almost glass-like surface. It wasn't perfect and it did not last long, but it was enough for him. Naruto finally felt like he could have passed. Took you much too long, young Naruto, the instructor said with a smile. Not perfect, but not bad. Not bad at all. He took the core and moved to the next person, but all Naruto could think about was his chances of passing. The silver-haired brat could only smirk. The academy was a tall, grand structure with a huge yard. It was completely closed off from other sections of the Suriidai, which Naruto wished he could have explored more than he did. Toshiro was standing next to him, already dressed in his standard academy blue uniform. Naruto wished he could be in the advanced class with Toshiro, but all he could think about was the fact that he had passed at all. Naruto felt very nice in the crisp uniform, but he had a feeling that he would get very tired of it very quickly. He was more upset at the fact that he couldn't wear his headband, but he figured that it could wait. This place is massive, Toshiro said, humbled by the size. Much bigger than any building back home. Naruto had to nod. Most definitely. The yard was filled with students milling about, many with swords across their backs. The 2 boys wished that they had their own, because both felt like they stood out as first years. Lil Shiro. Naru! Yelled a voice. They both turned to its source, smiling as a very excited Momo Hinamori, dressed in her academy red and carrying her sheathed blade, appeared from the top of the stairs. Both boys were extremely glad to see her, even though the nicknames were just a little annoying. Momo! How are you? Naruto asked, as the girl hugged both of them hard around the neck. I'm doing just fine, the girl said. I'm just ready for my last year of the academy. Izuru, Rinji, and I have been waiting for far too long. Who are they? Asked Toshiro, but Momo waved them off. No worries, you'll meet them. Let me give you a tour, and then you'll have to head over to orientation. And with that, the 3 of them left to explore the place that would house them for the foreseeable future. Naruto was so excited that he could hardly wait. Toshiro seemed to notice his expression. You do realize this is a school, right? With tests and exams and homework? Shut up, Toshiro, you're spoiling it. Red hair was the only detail he could remember from the dream that had awakened him in the middle of the night. He tried to remember, tried very hard to make it all make sense, but nothing seemed to click. He grimaced as he looked at the clock at his bedside, realizing that it was not too long until he needed to get up anyway. Classes started today, and Toshiro and Naruto's 3rd roommate was supposed to arrive later in the morning. He got up, turning off his alarm clock and looking at his sleeping friend in the other bed across the wall. He had fallen asleep with a book on his chest, a book about the theory of Zanpakuto spirits. Naruto had a copy of his own and found it fascinating, if a little hard to read because the language was older, but Toshiro had lost himself in it. There was probably drool all over the page. He quietly got dressed in his uniform, still enjoying how it felt to wear it. It felt good to be a part of something so good. Toshiro kept reminding him that it was still going to be a school and that classes would likely be challenging, but Naruto was trying to look past that. He was trying to meet the challenge on his own, and Momo had offered to tutor both of them if they needed it. The blonde was confident that once he got the swing of things, he wouldn't need the tutoring, if he ever did at all. In fact, he brought out the book about Kidu, focusing on learning the theory as opposed to the actual incantations. That was some of Momo's advice, back from her first year. If they had a good background on the technicalities of a subject prior to class, they would more likely succeed in practice. He didn't want to overwhelm himself with trying to memorize the words to the spells he had never attempted to use, but he could find more use in memorizing the steps to using them. He read up a little on Hohu, or footwork, but that was easier when put into practice. It was difficult to follow on paper, much easier to follow when a teacher or instructor demonstrates it. He had tried a few of the steps outside the day he got the book, but both he and Toshiro had struggled. Hinamori had promptly demonstrated an advanced Hohu move called Shunpa, and Naruto had never been more amazed than the moment Hinamori practically teleported from one place to another almost 50 feet away. He realized that he would have to wait to learn Hakuda and Hoha on his own time. Zanjutsu, however, Zanjusta was what he wanted to learn. He couldn't wait to get a sword, couldn't wait to learn how to use it, get his own Zanpakuto and kick hollow ass. He wondered if he had been any good with a sword in his past life, or if he even had any reason to use one in his past life. He was probably something lame like a restaurant worker or a garbage man. There was a knock on the door, immediately causing Toshiro to groan and shove the pillow over his ears. Naruto chuckled, walking over to see who it was. Hinamori was likely already busy helping people check in, so he wondered if it was the other roommate. The door opened, revealing a gangly teen who looked to be about 16 or 17 wearing the standard uniform and a bag over his shoulder. Naruto wondered why he wore his hair like that, with all of it tied in the back like some kind of spiky ponytail. The boy's expression was a tired one, and Naruto could already tell that he and Toshiro would get along. "Good morning," Naruto said, a bit of pep in his step. From the response, he knew that this kid was not used to someone as high-strung as Naruto. "Are you the third roommate?" The boy nodded slightly. "Yeah. Just tone it down a little, will ya?" He walked in and placed his bag on the last unoccupied desk, before starting to prepare his bed. Silver-haired kid has the right idea. "I'm not a kid," Toshiro muttered, slowly rising from the bed. The textbook fell off of his chest and landed on the floor, much to Toshiro's chagrin. Naruto grabbed it for him, placing it on the desk. Don't let Toshiro bug you," Naruto began. "He's Toshiro Hitsugaya, and I'm Naruto." The other boy pondered his statement a moment. "Naruto what?" The blonde rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. "Just Naruto. I am not sure what my last name is." "Oh. Sorry," he said quickly. "I'm Shikamaru Nara, of North Rakangai 28. "Cool. He and I are from Junranin, West Rakangai 1. Naruto started to explain their whole life story, but Toshiro cut him off. "Come on, Naruto, he doesn't want to hear all that. We'll have plenty of time to tell that later." And with that, Toshiro stood and began to change into his uniform. "What about your life before?" asked Shikamaru, genuinely intrigued. "You started your story talking about Hakuten." "Neither one of us remember our past lives," Toshiro explained. Shikamaru frowned. "Oh. I was kind of hoping to be wrong, but it seems that anyone with a substantial amount of Riryoku does not remember anything before the Soul Society." Naruto nodded, sadly. "I kind of figured that. But it sucks to realize it." The other two nodded in agreement. "All right, I was hoping to try to get some sleep, but I don't think I have time now. You guys want to come to get breakfast before class starts?" He paused, before saying, "Wait. Which class are you guys in, 1 or 2? Naruto held up 2 fingers, and Toshiro said, 1. "Oh, cool. I'm in 2 too." Naruto chuckled at the brown-haired boy's choice of words, but both of the others shot him a look that quieted him quickly. After a quick breakfast and catching up, Naruto and Shikamaru split off from Toshiro and headed toward class. Shikamaru was hopelessly lost, but Momo had given Naruto explicit directions toward the lecture hall. He still remembered them, thankfully. "You excited for class?" asked Naruto. The other boy shook his head. "Not really. It's not something I'm going to worry about." "Confident?" Nara nodded. "Yeah. I'm not too worried about the actual class work. It's the practical stuff I'm worried about. Naruto laughed. I'm the exact opposite. I'll have to study pretty hard to learn all that history and math, but I think I'll do really well when we actually get to do something. Shikamaru smiled, just as they finally arrived at the lecture theater. They sat together somewhat in the back, and Naruto hurriedly gathered a notebook and his textbook to follow along. Shikamaru just sat, and Naruto was confused. You're not going to get out any paper or anything? The other boy shook his head, stretching in his seat. Nah. We're not likely to cover anything too complicated today. I'll just sit and absorb. The blonde shook his head, grinning. Toshiro and Shikamaru were practically the same person sometimes, Naruto could already tell. The professor, a short squat woman named Keiko Takashi, was the main instructor for Class 2. She was going to oversee all of the instruction, including the Zankinsoki. The Zankinsoki were the 4 physical manifestations of a Shinigami's training: Hakuda, Hohu, Kidu, and Zanjutsu. She went through a basic overview of the instruction during the first year, which was mostly basic knowledge every Shinigami would need to know. Naruto couldn't wait to get to the fun stuff. So that's when and why the Spiritual Arts Academy was founded, Takashi said, explaining the origin of the 2,100-year-old building. But ma'am, it has not been called the Spiritual Arts Academy but for the last 200 years, a voice in the corner interrupted. Before its owner stood up to answer, they changed the curriculum of the Shinigami Academy to include the Kido Corps and the Stealth Force after the Quincy War, becoming the Spiritual Arts Academy as a result. Naruto could see nothing about her but her long, almost waist-length pink hair. The lecture hall was silent. Shikamaru and Naruto shared a glance before Takashi could comment. Miss, could you come down here for a moment? The professor said with a smile, a warm and inviting one. The girl was eager to get up, and Shikamaru shook his head. She's about to get slaughtered up there. Naruto peered at him before turning his attention back to the girl. The professor put her arm around the girl's shoulder in a warm, one-armed hug, a bright smile on her face. Miss, could you tell everyone your name? The pink-haired girl proudly grinned. Sakura Haruno, ma'am. The professor let go of her and sat down in the front row. Everyone was confused for a moment, including Sakura. Finally, the professor said, Go on, Professor. Why don't you teach us more about the vast history of the Spiritual Arts Academy? Sakura, having realized at that moment she was being played, nervously looked down. She said something indeterminable, before hurrying back to her seat. She wiped her eyes, and Naruto frowned. Most of the class was in uproar, laughing. But some were watching the girl with concern. Can the professor do that? Embarrass her students in front of everyone like that? Asked Naruto. Shikamaru nodded. Yeah. Technically, Sakura did try to correct the professor, even though what she was correcting did not matter in the slightest. The Shinigami Academy just changed its name after the Quincy War. It didn't become a new thing, in the most basic sense. Whatever, Naruto whispered. I still don't like that the professor did that. Shikamaru could only shrug. Well, no matter if the professor was in the wrong or not, Sakura has made herself a target. Hopefully Takashi is not a vindictive person, but she should be careful. Takashi does control the grades. When that lecture class was finished, about 40 minutes later, the practical classes began. First up was Kidu, which Naruto was apprehensive but excited for. Everyone headed to the practice field, which included practice dummies and targets across a large, barren field. Naru. The blonde looked up to see Hinamori heading toward them. She smiled brightly, waving at him. Hey, Momo! What are you doing here? 6th years have to help as teaching assistants, so I chose to help the Kidu classes for 1st years this year. So that I could help you and Toshiro with Kidu. Momo grinned. Naruto seemed to remember that Shikamaru was there. Oh, this is our other roommate Shikamaru. Shikamaru, this is Momo Hinamori. We basically grew up together. Nice to meet you, Shika. The boy seemed to flinch at the nickname, an odd reaction Naruto thought. Likewise. A blonde teenager with his hair hanging so thickly over his eye that Naruto was sure he would never have depth perception walked over and joined Momo. He was a 6th year, based on his overall look. Oh, Naruto and Shikamaru, this is Izura Kira. He's one of the best in our year when it comes to Kidu. Momo, I believe you know as well as I do that that title belongs to you, Kira countered, making Momo just shake her head. Nice to meet you, freshman. The professor took over control of the class, having Momo and the other 6th years line up the students in solid groups to make things more organized. The professor began to explain the purpose of the goal, which was to demonstrate the difference between Hadu and Bakudu. She explained the basic method of casting spells, using their Riryoku in a refined way, instead of the widespread pressure she hoped they could all use at this point. She went over the incantation, before having the 6th years demonstrate the spells themselves. Naruto watched Hinamori, who lined up in front of Naruto's column. She began the chant, the words rolling off of her tongue with no hesitation. Spirit energy seemed to wrap around her fingers as she chanted, blue gathering and shining brightly. She suddenly flicked her wrist as she pointing, shouting the words, "Head to number 4, Byakurai." All of the 6th years emitted a large, fast bolt of blue lightning from their fingertips, hitting the targets and leaving scorching burns near the center. Naruto knew without bias that Hinamori's had been the most powerful in speed, intensity, and accuracy. She was a natural, and it made Naruto extremely envious. But Kira's could give her a run for her money, that was for sure. "Very good," Professor Takashi said before getting the others ready. She went over the incantation several times with everyone, having them all repeat after her. Naruto was sure he remembered it, but he went over it several times in his head and muttered it under his breath. Shikamaru ended up going before Naruto. The brown-haired boy finished the incantation, shouted the spell, and pointed. There was only a tiny flicker of light at the end of his finger, but it was very fast, just not very intense. Shikamaru cursed under his breath, turning around and taking note in his mind how to improve the next time. He noticed the pink-haired girl Sakura next, watching as she stepped up to the plate. Naruto was surprised to see that she did not even say the incantation, before shouting the end of the spell and firing the Kidu. It was not as bright or as fast as Momo's, but it managed to clip the target. She turned around, rather smug that she had done so without the incantation. The professor looked at her curiously, but Sakura did not notice. Naruto remembered the passage from the book about Aishuhaki, or incantation abandonment. Was she really skilled enough to successfully produce a spell without saying the incantation, even though it was less powerful? Naruto had to do right. As it was his Rose turn, he took a deep breath and called on the power within himself. He began the incantation, the words spilling from his mouth surprisingly easily. He pointed his fingers and shouted, "Master of the skies, pillar of all-consuming light. Split the heat from shadow and rend the heavens asunder. Head to number 4, Byakurai." The blue lightning bolt was extremely intense, and if he was right, he thought it might have been more powerful than even Momo's. It, however, was too high to hit the target, leaving a large scorch mark on the wall behind the target. He stared at his fingers, feeling rather good about his display even though he missed. Momo clapped him on the back. "That was great, Naruto. A little slow, but powerful." He beamed. The next they were going to demonstrate was a Bakuda spell. They were all lined up again, in the same order. She taught them the spell incantation and had the 6th years demonstrate. The human-shaped straw dummies could not stand a chance as Hinamori and the others stated the incantation, shouting, "Bakuda number 1, Sai." The spell forced the dummies' arms back behind their back, painfully forcing them to bend backwards. Momo's reacted quickly and a little bit more forcefully than the others. They released the spell, the straw dummies returning to normal before the students were allowed to begin. Shikamaru did the spell quite well this time, binding the dummy without causing too much trouble. He was proud that he was able to do the binding spell. Naruto watched Sakura again, and she was able to do the spell again without incantation. Who the heck was this girl and why was she able to do this so easily? Had she prepared a lot or something for the class? Why was she in class too if she was so good? Naruto stepped up to the plate, earning a good luck from both Hinamori and Shikamaru. He waited a moment, looking at this dummy before beginning the incantation. "Stop in the name of your God, kneel eternally at the feet of justice. Bind your hands in a fearful, never-ending prayer. Respect the authority of omnipotence. Bakuda number 1, Sai." The training dummy before him immediately locked its arms behind its back, the effect taking so fast that it forced the dummy to the ground. He beamed, this time both accurate and powerful. Hinamori was stunned, her jaw literally open. "Wow, Naruto," she said, still surprised. "I have to say, I didn't expect you to be as good at Kido as you are. You're better than I was when I was in year 1. Excellent job." "I don't know about that, Momo," Naruto said modestly, stepping back to let the next one perform the spell. "Isn't Kido your best subject?" She nodded. "Yeah, it is. But that doesn't mean it can't be yours as well." He thought about it a moment, smiling. Something about Kido felt natural to him, more natural than he would have thought. It was familiar. When Kido class finished, they were to head to the Hakuda dojo. Once again, there were several 6th-year students there to demonstrate for the teacher, with practice spars and fighting forms, but there were not any familiar faces among the older students. Naruto paid a lot of attention to the demonstrations, but they were not going to get to spar any on the first day. That was where Naruto knew he would learn the most, when he actually got to fight someone one-on-one. Takashi got the groups lined up in blocks, and they each learned different punches, kicks, and other types of moves. The blonde was more interested in grappling than straight-up punching, but he could already tell that Hakuto was not his best. That class went by without much of a surprise, and then it was time for another lecture about the inner workings and physics of Riryoku. Naruto and Shikamaru both had trouble staying awake, but Sakura managed to keep her mouth shut the entire period. All the math and equations was much too boring. If we have another class like that, there will not be enough naps in the world for me to stay awake the rest of the day, Shikamaru finally said, on the way to the cafeteria for lunch. No doubt, Naruto said. That stuff is the stuff that's hard for me. Well, at least there isn't another lecture class the rest of the day, said Shikamaru as they entered the cafeteria and headed toward the line. 2 regular classes might not be as bad as I thought. Naruto nodded, unsure. Maybe not. If we're lucky. They finished getting their meals and headed to find a table. Thankfully, Toshiro had already found one and was sitting with someone Naruto had not met. A tall, black-haired boy with violet-colored eyes. Both of them already had Asachi blades on the backs, which bugged Naruto immensely. Hey, Toshiro, Naruto said, sitting down next to Shikamaru and across from the new kid. Why do you guys already have swords? Class 1 and 2 alternate schedules, explained the stranger. Class 1 has Zanjutsu and Hohu in the morning, and Kido and Hakuta in the afternoon. He paused before smiling. I'm Sojiro Kasaka. My name's Shikamaru Nara, and that's Naruto. So how were your morning classes? Zanjutsu was really fun. They let us get Asachi blades, but we ended up practicing with wooden swords. I guess they don't want us to kill each other, Kasaka said with a laugh. Practicing Shunpa was really interesting. And harder than you think. Naruto laughed. I can imagine it will be difficult. How were yours? Asked Toshiro. Naruto's practically a master of Kido, said Shikamaru without a moment of hesitation. If he had hit his target with the first spell, there probably would not have been a target left. He had more luck with Bakudo. Toshiro peered at him. Really? I wouldn't have thought you'd be good at it because of how you have to memorize stuff. The blonde shrugged. Beginner's luck? The others laughed. Hakuto was not very fun. I don't see myself being very good at it. Me neither, Shikamaru added. I can't see myself ever wanting to get close to someone and take them out with only my fists. Toshiro laughed. The 4 of them talked for a bit longer, finishing their meals. The time was up as soon as Naruto finished his last bite, and they had to hurry off to Hoho. Class 2 was already milling about along the track, the breeze feeling very good today. The outdoor track was made specifically for using techniques based off of Shunpa, because it was easily 200 yards long. Naruto wondered if anyone had ever traveled 200 yards in a single Shunpa. Alright, the basic Shunpa is the most important technique to learn in Hoho. In battle, outmaneuvering an opponent may be the only thing that can save you, especially if the opponent is more skilled or has more power than you, explained Takashi. Having good footwork and being able to perform fast flash steps is one of the most important things you can do in combat. The 6 years lined up, and Naruto was amazed when they literally vanished from sight and then reappeared, before vanishing again in another step. They could cover several yards without even having to break a sweat. Naruto had to know how to do this. The professor explained the theory behind placing Riryoku around your feet and using it to sort of boost you through the environment, trying to help them visualize it so that it was easier to do. When it came time to try, Naruto thought he had a good concept of it. Shikamaru ended up getting to go first out of everyone. He prepared for it a moment, before launching himself forward. He literally vanished for a second, before stopping almost 30 yards away. He looked at where he was, shocked that he had managed it. Well, that might be the fastest Shunpa for a first year I've seen in years, Takashi commented, clapping. The other students clapped out of respect, but some did not like the display. Much in the same sense that many did not like that Sakura girl's outburst earlier. Many students followed Shikamaru, but none were as fast as him. One girl, the girl Naruto had seen whose hair buns made her look like a panda, was fast enough that she hit 15 yards faster than Shikamaru did, but they were only allowed one step to judge each other so she could not get as much distance as Shikamaru. Even the pink-haired Sakura girl tried, but she was only about half as fast as Shikamaru had been. Then it came to Naruto. He lined up at the start, and used his Riryoku to push himself forward, immediately stepping. His vision and senses blurred for a briefest of moments before he found himself at 25 yards, nearly as far as Shikamaru. Takashi commented highly on his speed, but that Shikamaru had pretty much won over every student there. Interesting, Takashi commented. A solid group of Class 2 students this year. This will be interesting, I think, but it all comes down to your Zanjutsu. Let's head to the dojo. As they walked, Naruto caught up with Shikamaru. You were great. How did you get to be so fast? The Nara boy smiled. Good at running away? Sometimes fighting is troublesome. Troublesome. That word stirred something in Naruto. Something about it seemed too familiar, too real. He'd used it before, but something about that phrase. Shikamaru snapped his fingers in front of Naruto's face, stunning him and breaking his reverie. We're here. The Zanjutsu dojo was a grand gymnasium, filled with sparring dummies and lined with protective mats. There were several marked areas that Naruto suspected were sparring arenas. Along one wall were several racks filled with Asachi blades and wooden practice swords, and several of them were manned by 6th years. They all lined up on the wall opposite the racks, waiting on Takashi's signal to go over and pick up a practice blade and an Asachi. The Asachi blade would one day become their personalized Zanpakuto, so everyone was anxious. Most people were muttering about picking the right one, but even Naruto knew that they were all identical katana. Alright, Class 2, today we'll be working on several different forms and methods, but our first goal is to have each of you learn to respect the weapon you're to be given. For the first hour of this 2-hour class, you're going to be given your Asachi blade and you're going to clean it, polish it, and sharpen it. She went over a few more details, but once she was done, the 6th years broke them into small groups again and had them go over to the rack and get both an Asachi and a wooden practice sword. Naruto was in the same group as both Sakura and the panda-headed girl, and he ended up behind her on the way to get the sword. I've seen you around, he said. What's your name? The girl turned to look at him. Oh, yeah? You were there the day of the exam, and you fired that super kiddo earlier that everyone was talking about. It's a shame that it missed. I had both spells blow up in my face. She stuck out her hand. Tenten. Naruto, he replied. Both spells? She nodded. Yeah. Kiddo is not my thing. But I can't wait to get my sword. He grinned, liking her enthusiasm. Me too. Can I ask you something though? Sure. How did you perform that fast Shunpa earlier? Like you were faster than me and my roommate Shikamaru, but you didn't go very far. She thought about it a second, as they both moved up in line. I guess it's just a short burst of speed. I can't make the energy last for long enough to get very far, if that makes sense. It's hard to describe, actually. It was hard to think about on the scale of Shunpa, but it made sense. I don't think I have a lot of Riryoku, so I guess I can only go so far at a fast speed. He pondered it a bit. I bet there's more to it than just the amount of energy you have. You might can get a lot faster. Maybe, she muttered, thinking it over. Actually, it has a lot to do with the amount of energy, said a voice. Naruto and Tenten looked forward to see Sakura, who had apparently been listening. It also has a lot to do with how refined the energy is. It's all a balance of Ryatsu and Riryoku. Naruto and Tenten shared a look. This girl was a know-it-all. That makes sense. Sakura, wasn't it? He asked. She nodded. Yeah. Sakura. What are your names? Tenten and Naruto introduced themselves. How did you do all that kiddo without an incantation? Asked Tenten. Everyone noticed and was talking about it at lunch. It's called Aishihaki, when you do a kiddo without the whole spell, she explained, which Naruto confirmed with his own knowledge. I was, trying to do it to make up for my outburst in class earlier. I was trying to show the professor that I guess I was trying to make up for it. Tenten nodded. Yeah, I can see that. It was really interesting that you could do all that with your kiddo. I'm jealous. Sakura laughed sheepishly, but the 6th year finally called out, catching Sakura's attention. The 6th year was a man who looked to be about 16 or 17 and had bright red hair that was eerily similar to Shikamaru's hairstyle. Sakura accepted her blade, her wooden practice sword, and her sharpening and polishing kit. Tenten and Naruto took their own and headed back, thanking the 6th year as they did. Tenten, Naruto, Sakura, and Shikamaru found each other and began to polish their new weapons, using the sharpening stones and the polishing kit to treat the blades. Naruto felt very cool holding the blade, and he literally could not wait until they were allowed to start Jin-Zen, that process to connect to their Zanpakuto spirit. They worked relatively quietly, but they all learned some things about each other. Like the fact that Sakura was from South Rukongai, District 15. That she had basically lived with a good family of other departed souls, and that the district was pretty wealthy, and that she had not had much trouble since her death. Tenten was from East Rukongai, District 67, and had had a much worse afterlife than the rest of them. Sakura had wanted to become a Shinigami because of the stories she had heard about women in the Suriidai. Tenten had witnessed a battle against the Hollow several years back, and she had really wanted to become one after that moment. Shikamaru had always wanted to do it, but he had not had the motivation to do it until this year. When they were finished polishing their swords as a group, each were told to sheathe the asachi and get out their training swords. Takashi stepped forward and gestured for the sixth year who had handed out the sword to Naruto, Tenten, and Sakura. All right, Renji Abarai here is one of the most experienced Sanjutsu users in the academy right now. I'm going to have him go through some of your basic forms and stances with you, just to get you prepped. You need to be prepared because we're going to slowly start sparring over the course of the year, so knowing these basic steps will help you very much. Renji, if you would, take it away. He gestured for them to split up so they all had room to move around if need be. I'm not sure if I'm the right teacher for you guys, since I don't really know how to fight as well as I would like. But I know the basics, and I'll teach you the basics as well. He showed them several poses, several types of swings, stabs, and parries. Naruto absorbed each one, enjoying the possibility of using each in a spar against Toshiro and Momo one day. Toshiro would probably have gotten some advanced techniques because he was in class 1, but those wouldn't matter. He'd show his friends what he could do. Several months had passed by since the start of the academy. Naruto was passing with flying colors. His Hakuda was still his overall weakest link, but he felt like he was going to get better each day the more he practiced. He was probably the best in his class at sword fighting. He had a surprisingly well-suited knowledge of Kido, and had improved his accuracy tenfold since he started. He could sense Riryoku and control it relatively well, and all of his friends' Ryatsu's signatures were familiar to him. He went through, finding each one once more just for practice. Based on her signature, Tenten was sitting in her room with her roommate Samui. Sakura was training in the academy's sick bay, getting personal one-on-one time with a seated officer of Squad 4 that Naruto had never met. Shikamaru was sitting outside the room, in the middle of a grassy knoll on the grounds and performing Jinzen, which was a fancy way of saying that he was taking a nap. Momo was busy in some kind of calligraphy class that a lot of girls went crazy for, probably because it was run by Squad 5 Captain Aizen. But something was wrong. Sojiro's presence was gone. And had been gone for a few hours, which could be Naruto's error, but it had been too long. He and Toshiro had been called to meet with one of the higher-ups in the academy, and then they both seemed to vanish from his presence. Now Toshiro was headed toward him, scaring him because of how distressed it felt, while Kusaka was nowhere to be found. It wasn't like the difference he felt when Toshiro gained his Shurikai a month ago. This was distressed, very random and fluctuating. Shikamaru opened the door to the room a couple of minutes later, appearing in a flash of Shunpa. Naruto, do you feel that too? Something's wrong with Toshiro. The two of them decided to head together to meet up with the other Shinigami in training. It took them a few minutes to find the flash of silver hair to mark his presence. Hey! Naruto exclaimed, causing the boy to look up a moment. Naruto's eyes widened when he saw the tears across the boy's face. What's wrong? Those bastards, he muttered, cursing and clenching his fists around the bloody blade. Those damn bastards. Shikamaru, when he noticed the blade, did not step farther. But Naruto met the silver-haired boy and put his hand on his shoulder. I don't understand, Naruto commented. Shikamaru seemed to notice something else. Toshiro, where's Kusaka? The younger boy immediately cried out in anguish, dropping his sealed Zanpakuto to the ground. The boy dropped to his knees in the middle of the schoolyard, tears streaming down his face. I don't understand. Why? How could this happen? He continued to mumble incoherently, but Naruto finally forced the boy to look at the blonde. Toshiro, what happened to Kusaka? No, Central 46 said that there could be only one, explained Toshiro. Kusaka gained his Shurikai yesterday, and he had Hyorinra too somehow. Shikamaru's eyes widened. How is that possible? Zanpakuto are unique to the Shinigami. I don't understand it either. But Central 46 they wanted us to fight to the death, to reveal the true owner of Hyorinru. Kusaka charged at me, forced me to fight him. I had him immobilized and I was going to just give up my sword so we would both be okay, but the stupid nobles wouldn't have it. The stealth force arrived, and I suppose you two can figure out what that meant. Naruto's eyes widened. So Jiro he's dead? Toshiro nodded. And it's all my fault. It's not your fault. You can't help the power you were given, and neither could he. Central 46 is at fault here, Shikamaru said. I'm sure there's another example where this law made sense in the past, but it should not even be an issue. It doesn't make sense that anyone could have the same Zanpakuto as anyone else. That's what I thought, Toshiro said. But Kusaka had Hyorinra just the same. I don't get it. I don't understand how they can toy with emotions like this. Shikamaru shrugged. It's probably one of those, we're doing it for the good of all, the bad of the few, situations. Almost like the Quincy War. They couldn't argue with that logic. Naruto realized that they probably needed to head inside and get out of the middle of the yard, where everyone could see. Toshiro followed the two roommates back to their joint room. Naruto did not know how anyone could do this kind of injustice. But whatever had caused it, he wanted to know so he could get to the bottom of it. No matter how many years it took him. He owed that much to Kosaka and to Toshiro. Takashi lined the entirety of Class 2 along the outside of the building. She herself was not going to go, but she was going to open the Senkamen for several 6 years to get some prime experience leading a mission in the world of the living. The first years of Class 2 were going to go and practice Kanso, or soul burial, in a population center with a high spiritual density called Karakura Town. Naruto and the others had gotten an explanation from Toshiro about this little expedition, because Class 1 got to do this same trip in first semester of the year. Basically, they were going to go to a barrier-enclosed area within the city, monitor the souls using Kanso, and fight dummy hollows along the way. They were not expected to be attacked by actual hollows, but it was a small possibility. Renji, Izuru, and Momo were leading the expedition team, and a few other 6th years had already left to prepare the area they were going to monitor for the night. This was the kind of thing Naruto craved, but he wished he had his Shurkai to feel more secure. Toshiro had obtained his Shurkai about a month after this field trip earlier in the year. Naruto had wanted to get his own ever since, just to see if he could get something as amazing as Hyorinmaru. He wished that Toshiro could enjoy his sword again, like he seemed to before Kosaka gained its unnecessary twin and got himself killed for it. Now, the silver-haired genius kid of Class 1 could not look at his sword the same way. None of Naruto's other friends had managed to obtain Shurkai, but Tenten and Samui both claimed they could hear their blades calling to them. Shikamaru, Sakura, and Naruto had yet to make successful connections to their Zanpakuto, but all were certain that it was going to come sooner rather than later. Naruto fully expected to have learned his sword's identity before graduation, if not long before then. Takashi wished them luck and gave them one last bit of advice, to make sure that they contacted the 6th years if they got into trouble. And with that, she drew her blade and twisted it in the air like a key, causing a bright white circular portal made of a traditional Japanese door panel to open. After only another minute, Kira and Hinamori headed in first and called for the next group. When Naruto finally joined them passing through the portal, he remembered why he had not ever dreamed of flying. Aburai brought up the rear, but the feeling of traveling through the Senkamen was strange, each of them carrying the personal hell butterfly he had claimed earlier in the year. If one of them had not picked it up, they might have been shot through time like some kind of strange time traveler. The cleaner was a powerful force, almost like a rushing locomotive. The portal opened again on the other side to a beautiful cityscape. Naruto had never seen anything like this, having never seen all these lights and tall buildings and short buildings and schools. There were many rushing cars, strange contraptions that allow humans to get around. It was odd to see so many people living in one place, nearly as crowded if not more so than Rakangai or the Suriidai. Naruto was fascinated. Simply fascinated by the large city, and he did not even have to wonder if he had seen a city like this in his past life. He was certain that he had not, because he was sure he would remember such a magnificent place. Momo stepped to the front, shushing everyone and catching their attention. Okay, you guys, it's time to get this thing going. The other 6th years have prepared a certain radius and enclosed it with a barrier that will warn us of the appearance of actual hollows. The purpose is to simulate the experience that you may have while monitoring an area in the real world, like fighting the dummy hollows and performing Kanso on the souls here. This area has an unnaturally high Reisure and Riryoku density for a place in the world of the living, Kira explained, so you should have plenty of souls to perform on. We'll be staying here for a period of one night before we head back to the Suriidai. Everyone understand? Asked Aburai, looking over all of them. Naruto nodded with his group, Sakura and Tenten. The 3 of them were going to fight the dummy hollows as a team, using their powers to complement each other. Everyone split up with a single Shunpa, Naruto's group heading toward the western perimeter of the barrier-enclosed city. They were assigned to go there and defeat any dummy hollows within a certain radius, before meeting back at the starting point. This should be fun, Tenten said as they finally found their spot, above what looked to be a high school being constructed. Interesting. The dummy hollows should have a specific Ryatsu signature we can track, Sakura said. Naruto, will you confirm this for me? Can you feel one about 400 yards to the northeast? Naruto opened up his senses, knowing that Sakura was probably right, but he still needed to check. When he felt the unique pressure he nodded, immediately gesturing for them to follow. The 3 of them shunped to the area, surprising the mechanized hollow developed by the Shinigami Research and Development Institute. Bakuda number 1, Sai. Naruto and Sakura yelled together, the dummy hollow not even able to react as it was flipped upside down, its claws forced together like they were bound. Tenten shot towards it in another burst of speed, slashing at the mask with her Asachi in a diagonal cut. It was immediately sliced in half with the mechanical sound of rupturing parts. Yeah! She yelled, grinning at Naruto and Sakura. But something was happening while her back was turned. The two mechanical halves suddenly regenerated, forming two identical dummy hollows. Naruto saw was what happening a tiny bit faster than Sakura, and in one more flash of speed, he drew his blade and stepped in front of Tenten's back, blocking the first dummy hollow from attacking her. He shoved it off and then slashed, destroying the first in a burst of spiritual pressure that caused it to explode from the effort. Sakura stepped forward and began another incantation. Ye Lord! Mask of blood and flesh, all creation, flutter of wings, ye who bears the name of man. Inferno and pandemonium, the sea barrier surges, march on to the south. Hada number 31, Shikaho. A large red ball of energy gathered at her palm and fired, exploding on impact and reducing the second half to nothing. The three of them took a deep breath, not one of them willing to sheathe their swords in case the hollows regenerated and doubled once more. Those nerds at the SRD love to cause mayhem, don't they? Asked Tenten, laughing uneasily when they were sure that the hollows were in fact destroyed. Anyway, there should be a hole around here if the hollow was attracted to this area, dummy or not. Sakura nodded. I think I've located it. She pointed to an alleyway about 50 yards away. The three of them ran over there, deciding not to shunpa so they didn't scare it off. It was a little boy, not even 10 years old, with a broken chain of fate extending from his chest. He was scared, still hiding and flinching when they approached. Tenten decided to do the honors, holding her sword up above her head. I'm not going to hurt you, little boy. What's your name? The boy peered at her. Sa Satoshi? Well, Satoshi, I need to send you to the Soul Society. It's a beautiful place where you won't suffer anymore. Does that sound okay? The boy nodded slightly, and that was enough for Tenten. She took the sword, turned it around, and popped the boy on the forehead with the hilt. In a brilliant display of blue light, the boy vanished into the earth with a peaceful smile on his face. Naruto took a deep breath, taking in the serene moment. That felt good, Tenten said with a smile. Immediately, the three of them flinched as a Ryatsu's signature popped into play again, only a few yards away. Naruto ran out of the alleyway, shocked to see that the tiny bits of the dummy hollow that existed before slowly started to regenerate. They were now standing next to 9 different dummy hollows, each of identical size and Ryatsu. What the hell? He muttered, shocked that these still regenerated from their bits. We should have destroyed them more completely, Sakura shouted before getting proactive. She dashed forward, her sword at her side, before she launched herself into the air. She channeled Ryatsu into her fist and smashed in the mask of one of them, before flipping away and heel crashing into the mask of another. Both exploded into bits. Naruto was impressed, but he had his own to worry about. He rushed forward, using Shunpa to increase his speed. He slashed off the claw of one hollow, twisted and cut into the side of the another. He fluctuated his Ryatsu to negate an attack to his side, before slashing outward and cutting that entire monster in half. He jumped into the air and pointed. Hada number 4, Byakurai! A stunning blue and white bolt of lightning shot from his fingertips, blasting directly through the mask of 2 hollows, making them explode into tiny bits. Tenten chopped another in half, twisting her blade in an adept display of perfect Zanjutsu form to destroy another in the same swing. Naruto grinned as he witnessed it, admiring her natural ability with a sword. Her speed was still impressive, besting Shikamaru and Naruto but still having trouble with the stamina there. The three of them joined each other and faced the last couple of hollows. The bits and pieces were about to reform, but it was time to finish this. Sakura whispered a plan to both of them, and the other two acknowledged that it would have to be enough. Sakura shot both hands together. Bakuda number 4, Heinawa! A tendril of yellow energy shot from her hand, immediately binding the remaining hollows and the regenerating bits, almost like the net of yellow Riryoku. Tenten, using her signature short-term burst of speed, hacked the remaining dummy hollows to pieces, zigzagging with Shunpa as she did. She zipped back to start, signaling Naruto's turn. He leapt into the air, much like before, and held up both hands. Ye Lord! Mask of flesh and bone, flutter of wings, ye who bears the name of man. Truth and temperance, upon this sinless wall of dreams unleash but slightly the wrath of your claws. Hada number 33, Sukatsui. A huge blast of blue energy erupted across the entire area, looking like a mixture of blue fire and electricity, as it exploded loudly on the ground. It enveloped every bit of the dummy hollow, leaving not a single piece intact, and the entire area smelled of fire and almost brimstone. Tenten and Sakura braced themselves from the shockwave, amazed at the intensity of Naruto's Kido. Naruto popped back to his friends, breathing heavily after using so much Riryoku in such a short amount of time. He had quite a bit of endurance, but using so many spells and Shunpa in a few minutes was difficult. The three of them waited for several minutes, taking a breather and watching the area where the dummy hollows had been. There were no remains this time, nothing for the hollow to come back from, so they felt much safer. "Let's keep patrolling," Sakura said. "I don't feel any more hollow Ryatsu in our patrol area, so we should be safe for the rest of the night. Let's just keep our eye out for any souls to perform Kanso." The three of them did just that. At the end of the night, when everything was clear, they rejoined with the others in the sky at the center of the area. The other 6th years joined Renji, Momo, and Izuru, the Senkamen closed behind them. All the groups were praised by their individual efforts in handling the threats. "Those threats were troublesome," Shikamaru commented, standing next to Naruto's group with his own. "What's the big idea with the SRDI? Are they trying to kill us?" Momo laughed. "No, of course not. The duplicating dummy hollow was developed in order to test your ability to think things through. Hopefully you guys were able to do that, right?" The first years all nodded in agreement. "Was anyone hurt seriously?" asked Izuru. No one seemed to comment, because most groups had someone who was skilled with medical Kido, and if something had happened, they would have been able to heal them relatively well. "Then I guess it's time to go," Renji said before turning to the Senkamen. "Open!" It slid open at the request, shining bright white light as they headed back to the Soul Society. Naruto, Shikamaru, Sakura, Tenten, and the blonde-headed Samui quickly found a row of empty seats with a good view of the stage. Each of them were happy with their grades, having passed year 1 of the Spiritual Arts Academy with varying degrees of success. Every one of them managed to do average or better, and Naruto could not be more happy with his B-. Sakura had the best grades of their little group, Shikamaru and Tenten ended up with AB, and Samui had AB+. Naruto was very proud of all his friends, but even more proud of Toshiro and Momo. The graduation ceremony was a buzz of activity. Murmurs and rumors had been flying through the school about the special circumstances of the graduation. Not only were 6 out of 13 captains present, but everyone was surprised to learn that a freshman was graduating. In under 1 year. Most did not know how or why the silver-haired child genius was graduating so soon, but most were happy for him. Naruto just laughingly hoped he'd stop being a brat now, but that was likely not the case. When the ceremony finally began, a mustached man walked up to the stage. He had the look of nobility, a white coat on top of his shihakusho and a zanpakuto at his side. Naruto thought he could be a captain, but Sakura muttered in awe, "Chojiro Sasakaibe, lieutenant of Squad 1. Good afternoon, and welcome to the 2066 graduation ceremony for the Spiritual Arts Academy." Naruto noted that his voice sounded very commanding, very deep and unyielding. The man introduced himself before saying, "Head Captain Yamamoto is currently busy with other affairs, but I will be taking over the ceremony. First, however, I would like to introduce you to the captains that are present at this time." He went through a list of names, each one bowing as they did. Squad 6 Captain Baikuya Kachiki, a noble who looked far too snobby for Naruto's liking. Squad 5 Sosuke Aizen, a kind-looking man who took time out of his busy schedule to teach a calligraphy class. Squad 4 Captain Retsu Unohana, whose kind and interesting demeanor completely unnerved everyone watching. Squad 7 Captain Sajin Kamamura, a very tall, bulky man wearing a large, wooden contraption on his head that looked like a strange helmet. Squad 13 Captain Jushiro Yukitake, who looked a little bit pale and sickly to be out and about. And Squad 8 Captain Shunsui Kairaku, a flamboyant man wearing a pink, flowery kimono. Each took another bow at the end, and the students clapped and bowed back. Without further ado, let us begin the graduation ceremony. Would the graduating class please stand and prepare to come on stage? Tenten found Toshiro and the others, pointing and waving. Naruto shot him a thumbs up, but he knew what the other boy was thinking. Kusaka should be here with him. Momo looked positively vibrant, Kira looked nervous, and Renji almost looked like he would hurl. Naruto was happy for all of them. The lieutenant went through the names, each coming on stage and receiving a diploma before lining back up in front of the stage. Slowly but surely, Sasakaibe called out, "Renji Abarai, of Squad 5. The red-headed boy nearly tripped and fell trying to go forward, and Naruto wondered where this clumsy streak came from. He took the diploma happily and Naruto smiled at the idea of Squad 5 for him. Izuru Kira, of Squad 5. The blonde headed onto the stage, receiving his diploma and joining the others. Momo Hinamori, of Squad 5. The girl happily accepted her diploma, ecstatic that it was Squad 5 like she had wanted since she saw Aizen for the first time in her first year. All three of them are in Squad 5? Asked Shikamaru. That does seem a little bit odd, Tenten added. Naruto shrugged it off, but after Sakura expressed her concerns as well, he remembered the story of Hinamori's first field experience trip, much like their own. They had gotten attacked by huge hollows during their trip, and it was Squad 5 Captain Aizen and his Lieutenant Jin Ikimaru who had saved them. Naruto explained that story to the four of them. Maybe Aizen just wants to keep them safe? Offered Samui, brushing the blonde bangs out of her face. Like he felt connected to them after that incident. Shikamaru eventually just shrugged. I'm sure that's all it is. It's not that weird, I guess, just a coincidence. The line continued until finally, all the 6th years had received their diplomas. Naruto and the others were so glad because Toshiro was the only one left, and he must have been feeling very out of place. This year, we have a special occasion that has not been done since Squad 5 Lieutenant Ikimaru graduated many years ago, explained Sasuke. First year Toshiro Hitsugaya, of Squad 10. Naruto cheered, screaming his lungs off for his best friend. It was a special occasion, and soon, several other first years joined in, including Shikamaru and the others. Toshiro walked up slowly, looking impossibly tiny compared to some of the other students who were graduating, and took his diploma from the Squad 1 lieutenant. They bowed to each other before the boy happily joined the ranks of the graduated students. Sasuke and the captain stood before gesturing to the flag of the academy. The graduates began the motto. Do not seek beauty in battle. Do not seek virtue in death. Do not make the mistake of considering only your own life. If you wish to protect that which you must protect, slice the enemy you must defeat from behind. Naruto touched the hilt of his Itachi. He sat down in the grass, Shikamaru only a couple of feet away from him, lying on the top of the hill he had come to love so much. The lazy brunette was staring at the clouds, his sword lying across his chest. The blonde had been trying to perform Jinzen all day, using the day off of classes to try to do something productive. The very next day was going to be another day of field training, and then next week Naruto and the other 4th years were going to go through the trials, a tournament-style competition. Naruto was optimistic, and pretty much every one of the 4th years were excited about it. Even Shikamaru seemed excited, but that could be feigning interest to get Naruto to shut up. At least he wasn't as bad as Samui, who could only say, cool, every time someone asked her about it. Jinzen was difficult because he was not the most patient person in the world. He wished he could be more patient, but his mind was always too active to let his body calm down enough to try to connect with the spirit within. He knew it was going to have to happen, knew it would be necessary. It's not going to be forced, Naruto, Shikamaru began, peeking at him from the corner of his eyes. You got to take it slow. Even Toshiro took it slow. He got his Shurikai faster than anyone in the academy in years. That's not slow. Shikamaru sighed. You don't see my point. I mean, when he actually started, he sat and waited. You aren't being patient, you aren't letting it happen to you. You're trying to force it to happen. Oh yeah? Well, do you have your Shurikai? When Shikamaru shook his head, Naruto nodded. That's what I thought. I'm going to connect to my sword if it's the last thing I do. It just might be the last thing you do, Naruto, Shikamaru said. Because you're never going to get there if you try to force your way to your Shurikai. Naruto huffed, trying once more to close off all outside influences and think about Jinzen. He tried to think about the unsheathed sword laying across his crossed legs. Nothing was happening, so he tried harder. It's not going to work. Shut up. I'll get there. The next day, the 4th years of Class 2 headed to the outside of the academy's main building, meeting to discuss their mission before they actually left. The sun was high in the sky, so whatever the mission was would be in the daytime, thankfully. Naruto, Shikamaru, and Tenten were in a 3-man group, Sakura the odd one out this time. Toshiro had been in Class 1 with Samui, who was probably busy with other projects today while they got to do field training. The goal today was to guard a group of nobles from attack by assassins and dummy hollows, working together. They had done similar field work before, but this was the first year they were allowed to do these missions without any outside help. Professor Takashi, still the teacher of Class 2 even after all this time, began to outline the roles and goals for the mission. When she was finished, she let them go, opening up the Senkamen as before. A barrier had been prepared already by the nobles they were protecting, who turned out to be other 6th years who were not allowed to help or give advice. Naruto rushed his group through the shining white gate, his own personal black and white butterfly accompanying him, and then disappearing into the sky. He looked over their assigned area not too far from the center of the barrier-enclosed space, where the Senkamen had been. The noble they were protecting was already there, pretending to be helpless. Shikamaru gestured for them to focus on him a moment, his mind already forming a plan. The idea is to protect our noble at all costs, right? Naruto, your Kido is our secret weapon. I want you to focus on Bakudo, while Tenten and I finish them off. If they get smart, switch up your attack method. I'll help you form a cloaking Kido around our noble. Naruto nodded, immediately beginning to chant the incantation for a simple cloaking spell. Shikamaru joined him, speaking calmly and letting the Riryoku run through his body to enact the spell. Thinly veiled from death's sight, all light from shadows turn away. Enshroud thyself in the mass depression of the enemy's empty act. Bakudo number 26, Kyako. With their fingers, Naruto and Shikamaru drew an imaginary line around the noble, who was immediately surrounded by a dome of light that had the ability to hide Ryatsu and appearance. The noble literally vanished from sight, with only Naruto and the genius able to see him if they focused hard enough. They waited for several minutes, surrounding the place where the noble stood and lying in wait. Tenten was ready, her sword in her grasp and willing to fight, to taste blood. She knew her blade well, her natural ability with a sword and her connection to her Zanpakuto spirit greater than any of the others in their group. Shikamaru held up his blade, waiting and willing to fight if necessary. He was more apt to run away, use the speed he was blessed with to get out of dodge. He wished he could swap his Riryoku potency with Naruto, because if he had Naruto's vast energy pool, he'd be able to run at top speed all day. Naruto would be able to surpass him after a few dozen Shunpa if that was all they were focused on, simply because he had more energy to last him. Damn, these guys are lazier than you, Shikamaru, Tenten reprimanded, smirking as she kept her watch of the tree line only about 20 yards from her. Naruto laughed. Isn't that the truth? The other boy could only roll his eyes, but before he could react, something hit the edge of his sensors. Tenten. 25 yards at 4 o'clock. Just then, a member of the stealth force, wearing an all-black, ninja-like outfit that covered him from head to toe, leaped from the trees, holding his wakizashi blade in hand. Tenten braced herself, their swords clashing together before she shoved outward with her asachi, causing the ninja to use the pressure on the blade to jump off. He flipped in the air once, landed on his haunches, and then pounced with his speed again, trying to overpower her. Tenten spun with a brilliant mixture of ho-ho, before snapping her leg up in a move that would have made Sakura proud. The kick sent the stealth force member flying, but as he landed, his body evaporated into a paper doll. Immediately, the entire clearing burst with activity. Naruto cursed as he considered what was happening, his mind on protecting the noble from the false assassins and the dummy hollows now surrounding them. Everyone, close your eyes. He concentrated, pulling on the Riryoku within, before saying without incantation, Bakudo number 21, Sekienten. Red smoke appeared from nowhere, billowing from his palm until all three of them were obscured from sight. It was so thick that they could barely see each other, but this gave the other two a place to maneuver. Shikamaru seemed to realize it was now or never, and he immediately burst from the cloud in a flash of speed. Naruto could not see what was happening, but the clashing of swords was all he could hear. Tenten stepped back another yard or so and waited. A dummy hollow that looked suspiciously like a cat pounced at her like a feline. She threw up her blade and caught its claws, cursing that it pretty much had her sword locked into position. She repeated the same Hakuda kick from earlier, knocking it off before using Shunpa and her sword at the same time, slashing the cat hollow in half. Naruto focused on seeing through the slowly dissipating smoke, his Ryatsu sensing skills his only method of knowing what was coming. He felt the three assassins coming toward him from three different angles, his eyes widening. Bakudo number 9, Geki. The Kido started and took effect just as the three burst through the smoke cloud. He was proud it had worked, the paralysis spell capturing all three of them in a hue of red light that basically forced them to stand still in mid-attack. He grinned mischievously, zigzagging toward each of them with sword slashes to the abdomen and the chest, turning them all back into paper dolls. He turned, just in time to see another one of the cat-like hollows breaking through the smoke on Shikamaru's unguarded side. He shunped forward, the entire hollow losing all of its right limbs before it exploded. The shockwave from the explosion finally helped to dissipate the smoke, the red cloud vanishing. Tenten was locked in combat with two assassins. Shikamaru was busy trapped in between three cat hollows and an assassin, nearly pinned against a tree. A wound was obvious on his side, shocking Naruto, who had no expertise with healing Kido. Shikamaru! Clear out! He took his Zanpakuto, placed it horizontally, and began to chant. Ye Lord! Creator of flesh and blood, lash out against the foundations of power. Destroy the basis of the eternal fight to survive. Crush the denizens of the dark with your all-consuming light. Hado number 32, Okasen. Bright yellow light extended along the length of his blade before firing in a wide, crescent-like arc of energy. Shikamaru only barely got out of the way in time before the blast hit the area, cutting through several trees before finally dissipating. There were no enemies left. He twisted in the air, sensing something approaching the noble. A still wounded Shikamaru and Naruto flashed toward the hollow, arriving at the same time with enough time to block the cat from slashing through the cloak dome and revealing the noble's presence. Naruto tackled forward with his shoulder, shoving the hollow away from it before Shikamaru slashed downward, cutting through the hollow's mask like butter. Yet another exploded. Tenten finally shoved with her upper body, catching the two Stealth Force wannabes off guard. She then parried one strike, Shunpei to the right, and slashed off the arm of the doll. She then repeated the maneuver, this time going to the left and cutting a large chunk of the assassin's side, returning it to the slip of paper it used to be. The three celebrated having defeated all the enemies nearby. But Naruto caught some kind of Ryatsu on his radar, and it was different than anything he had felt before. Familiar but unique. "I'll be back in a second." He dashed towards it, leaving the wounded Shikamaru and Tenten more than a little confused. The strange presence was getting closer, probably just behind that ridge. He shunped toward the source, popping around the cliff and hoping to find something. It was gone. Just like that. Nothing. He frowned, wondering if he had just imagined the whole thing. He looked for clues for a moment, trying to feel for any residual Ryatsu. He picked up a torn piece of cloth, the fabric obviously made of reisure, and the same color as the black shihakusho that Shinigami wore. He thought for a long moment before stashing it in his pocket and heading back to Tenten and Shikamaru, hoping to explain it to them and let them figure it out. He did not know he was being watched. Weird Academy kid felt me? Surprising. The stranger disappeared, thumbing the ripped portion of his shihakusho. Preparing for the fourth-year trials was on everyone's minds. Shikamaru was the only one who didn't seem to care, but Naruto knew he did deep down. Samui had been going over strategies and trying to analyze how it would all work out. Tenten had been trying harder and harder to connect to her Zanpakuto, thinking that it might give her an edge. Sakura was practicing non-stop on her Hakuta, while studying Kido when she could. Naruto had been trying way too hard to mimic all of his friends' strategies, and it was dragging him down. He wished he could contact Momo or even Toshiro, even though the latter never got to do any kind of trials, to give him some advice. However, both of them were likely far too busy with their squads to worry about him. He very much wanted to go and find the Squad 5 barracks and see if she was available to speak, but the Suriidii did not take kindly to Academy students wandering the city. The guards, usually from Squad 9, did not allow the students to travel within a certain number of yards away from the Academy, not wanting them to be roaming around in case they were spies. It sounded like hogwash to Naruto. Who would spy on the Suriidii? Hollows were not sophisticated like that, and Hell was busy with their own affairs. Who else could possibly be there to do that? That reminded him of the Ryatsu signature he had found a few days ago, and the fabric piece to show for it. Something about it had been strange, too strange to forget about it. He reached into his pocket and studied the piece of shihakusho fabric, still wanting to know what it was. None of his friends had any ideas, but both Shikamaru and Sakura claimed they would think about it. He stood up and looked through his Kido textbook, suddenly getting a good idea that might work. He flipped to the page, hoping to find that one spell he had seen before. It was an advanced spell, probably something that an academy student should not try, but he was confident. He placed the piece of fabric on the desk, placing his hands around it in the hopes that the spell might be able to find any kind of residual spiritual pressure. Heart of the south, eye of the north, finger of the west, foot of the east, arrive with the wind and depart with the rain. Bakudo number 58, Kakushitsui Jako. As he chanted, he drew a circular diagram of kanji around the fabric in ink. Immediately, the diagram and the area around it began to glow with white-blue light. He felt his spiritual senses increase, so much Ryatsu flooding into his mind and being found and located. He concentrated on the fabric, his brow furrowing in the effort, but no matter where he looked, the fabric was unknown. The spell faded, taking the ink with it. He knew the spell had worked, but he had found nothing. He had seen that particular Kido demonstrated in class late in the year last year, and they had combined it with another Kido so that everyone in the class could visualize the Ryuraku, or spirit ribbons. Naruto could not find any ribbons that matched up to the tiny bit of reisure on the fabric. Well, that was a bust, he muttered upset. I should probably do what Samui suggested and explain it to the academy. He put the shihakusho fabric in his pocket, deciding to head to the main office and give it to whomever he needed to. They would ship it to the SRDI or the Kido Corps to be analyzed, and then hopefully, the right people could find the source of the shihakusho. The secretary took it from him, giving him the strangest look. Where did you find this? The squat woman asked. In the world of the living, during our field training last week, he explained, telling the woman about using keto to try to track it. I was hoping that the source would have come back to the Soul Society, because it was obviously torn off of a shahakusho, but I couldn't find anything. She nodded, rubbing it with her fingers. I'll have it sent to the SRDI. They can use their scanners there to track it, even between worlds. What was it about the situation that worried you? Naruto stopped to think for a moment. I don't know, really. The Ryatsu felt malicious. Like evil. I don't understand it really. Like a hollow? No. Not like a hollow either. It's hard to describe unless you were there. The secretary nodded. Okay, I'll take care of it. Thank you? Naruto nodded, heading out of the room to hopefully get some more genes in. He wished he had more time to prepare, but the trials started tomorrow, and there was too much on the line already. Toshiro looked up from his paperwork as someone came in, heading toward the captain's office. Toshiro stood from his desk, intercepting the newcomer, a messenger who seemed to be a little bit tired. Hello, can I help you? The messenger bowed to him. Sixth seat Hitsugaya. He brought out his parcel, wary though to hand it to him. I was tasked to deliver this to Cap Tai. I'll take care of it, he explained, taking the parcel from him. What is it anyway? A fourth-year academy student found this piece of a shahakusho and an odd Ryatsu signature. The academy sent it to the SRDI first, but Captain Kuratsuchi did not want anything to do with it, as the SRDI is busy investigating the recent murders of several Rakangai citizens. Squad 10 was the place he suggested, so I was going to bring it to the captain. Toshiro nodded, his mind on Naruto and his other friends when he heard that it was related to a fourth year. Had one of them found this? Thank you very much. I'll have the squad look it over. The messenger nodded, disappearing in a dash of Shuinpa. Toshiro opened the parcel and took out the piece of fabric. It didn't seem to be anything special, but he knew it might be worth looking into. He took it back to his office and prepared the paperwork report, obviously needing that to be done before he could move to figure anything out. He closed his eyes and tried to trace the Ryuraku around it, but nothing happened. That was frustrating. He pondered the recent murders, not knowing much about them due to his lower rank, but rumors spread like wildfire. Could these two incidents be related? The murders happened months ago, but they could not find the perpetrators. Had someone from the academy stumbled upon the culprit? And if so, does the fact that this was a shahakusho imply that the culprit was a Shinigami as well? Toshiro shuddered at the thought. Naruto finally arrived at the site of the trials, a huge combat course set up to test each of the 4 combat disciplines, or Zankinsoki. The arena was huge, dotted with large boulders and trees. Several large sets of audience stands surrounded the area, elevated so that they could all witness the fights without being in the line of fire. Several robed Keto Corps members were present, having constructed barriers to guard the stands in case of a stray spell. The fourth-year trials were a huge deal, and there was usually a representative from each of the 3 branches of the military that the Spiritual Arts Academy fed, as well as Squad 4's medical presence. The blonde-haired Shinigami in training could not tell where any of them were by looking through the fenced-in dugout area for the combatants. The dugout was located at one corner of the entire arena, so not a good angle to see all the audience stands. People filed in, many of them students from the academy and nobles who were probably related to kids in both Class 1 and Class 2. Naruto had been to one of the trials before, and it was one of the most exciting things he had ever witnessed. Now he was here, about to fight in it. Excited? Asked Tenten, joining him next to the fence and looking out over the busy crowd. He nodded. Yeah. I really am. Me too, she said with a grin. I have a feeling you're going to need me to wish you luck, so good luck. He smiled. You too. The teacher of Class 1, Gengoro Onabara, headed up to the front of the large room, getting everyone to settle down. Naruto and Tenten found a seat near the others. There were probably nearly 200 kids ready to participate in this week-long event. Settle down, the man began, scanning the crowd. I'm sure you already know, but just so that everyone is on the same page, let me go over the format of the week's events. Today is the preliminary phase. Tomorrow is round 1, Wednesday is round 2 and the quarterfinals, and Thursday will be both the semi-finals and the finals. But in today's preliminary, each of you will need to go out there and demonstrate each of the 4 Zankinsoki, and the judges will grade your performance. If you are above the standards we have set prior to the start of the trials, you will move to the next round, a 64-participant tournament. For those of you that struggle in a certain area of the Zankinsoki, you can make up for your score in another area. But if you are too low in more than one area, you will most likely not be able to hit the minimum number of points that you need to succeed. Does anyone have any questions? No one spoke up, everyone seemingly understanding. Shikamaru turned to his friends and whispered, "They probably have the standard set high in order to get to 64 fairly." Sakura nodded. "That makes the most sense. I don't remember what the score you had to get to was last year, but over 60% did not pass the preliminaries." "Well, no pressure then," Samui said. "Cool." Naruto stepped out onto the field, his turn for the preliminaries. There were about 15 other students on the field at the same time, each turned in ways so that they would not interfere with one another at all. His mind was still grappling with the fact that all of his friends did so well. Shikamaru's skill with Ho-Oh was almost unmatched, but Naruto found more and more lately that he had come very close to bridging the divide in terms of speed with him. Sakura had given a wonderful display of Hakuta and Kido, destroying all the targets relatively easily. Tenten showed a lot of skill with Ho-Oh and her Zanjutsu, which was really her greatest asset. Samui had not competed yet, but he was certain that her Zanjutsu, her Hakuta, and her Ho-Oh would be her best. Naruto wanted to do well, so he put any form of nervousness or hesitation at the back of his mind. He found his place on the field, preparing to compete. The judges were watching, grading each performance. He signaled that he was ready, and the targets appeared on the field: several steel training poles, several straw training dolls, and lots of long-range wooden targets. He knew his Kido was one of his strongest disciplines, so he decided to save that for last. He gathered Reisha around his feet and blasted forward, pouring as much speed as he could into his step. He slashed at one of the steel poles, making a loud noise that was sure to attract attention. He spun in the middle of one step and brought his sword down, immediately bifurcating the straw dummy and leaving it in shambles. As the head of the straw dummy was about to hit the ground, in a blaze of speed, he chopped the head to pieces. All before it could touch the ground. He put his sword away and used Shunpa again, hitting a punching bag with a series of well-placed kicks and punches. He knew it didn't have the power and finesse it needed to have, but he continued his Hakuta barrage until he hoped it was enough. He turned to the targets with another dash of speed, his lips forming the incantation for a combination that Momo had taught him. "Disintegrate, you black dog of Rondinini! Look upon yourself with horror and tear out your own throat! Bakudo number 9, Horin!" As he chanted, an orange and yellow energy thread appeared. He flicked his wrist toward the targets, entrapping each of them with expert guidance until all of the wooden targets were connected to his hand like some kind of web of Kido. Without the incantation, he shouted, "Heido number 11, Tsuzuri Raiden!" Instantly, a current of flickering yellow electricity channeled through the Horin thread, destroying each of the wooden targets at the same exact moment. He dissipated the Kido thread as he was finished. He bowed to the judges, wishing that they would just give him his results now and let him know if he got to go on to the next round. Despite the fact that that wasn't how it worked, the judges seemed pleased. Later that night, Naruto and his friends visited the tiny restaurant near the academy, where they often met up to celebrate and just have a good time. It was called the Wandering Sage, and it had such a nice atmosphere that they always felt at home. They were celebrating tonight because all 5 of them passed through the preliminaries with flying colors. "I wish we knew our individual scores," Sakura said, curious. "I'll bet we were all close." Tenten shook her head. "Well, everyone except Naruto." His eyes widened as everyone laughed at his expense. "Hey! What was that for?" Shikamaru snickered. "Come on, Naruto. She meant that you were better than all of us." "Better than all of you?" Sakura nodded, understanding their train of thought. "You were well balanced. On that type of scoring system, you were able to get more points and a good score overall, because you're above average on 3 out of 4, and your Hakuta wasn't bad. The rest of us have more stuff limiting us," Tenten explained, agreeing with Sakura. He considered it a moment. I never thought of it like that." Just then, someone ran up behind him and hugged him around the neck. "Naru!" When he realized it was Hinamori, he laughed and turned around, hugging her back. "Momo, what are you doing here?" he asked, moving over to let her have a seat. She grinned. "I thought you might be here. The trials are this week, right?" Shikamaru nodded. "Yeah, we all passed the preliminaries." She smiled brightly. "I knew you guys would. That's awesome." "What have you been up to, Momo?" asked Naruto. The Squad 5/8 seat considered it a moment. "Well, I have been swamped with paperwork. Ever since those murders, Squad 5. "Murders?" asked Samui, shocked. "Not cool." A couple of months ago, a few low-ranked and unseated Shinigami of multiple squads disappeared, explained Hinamori grimly. We found them spread across several jurisdictions in the world of the living, along with several normal souls. Shikamaru was surprised. A coordinated hollow attack? Momo shook her head. No. It was someone with a blade. And unusually, their bodies were completely drained of Riryoku. The surprise was evident on everyone's faces. Naruto thought back to the last trip they took for field training. Guys, do you think this could be related to that weird Ryatsu signature? Shikamaru pondered it a moment, and Tenten could only shrug with a frown on her face. What weird Ryatsu signature? Naruto explained his story about trying to locate it, finding the piece of Shihakusho, and then trying to trace it. When I couldn't find anything, I took it to the office and they said they would send it to the SRDI. Momo considered it a moment. No, that wouldn't work. Captain Kuratsuchi probably wouldn't think it worth investigating, just because it came from an academy student. I can't predict how he might think, but he probably sent it to either Squad 13 or Squad 10. Maybe you could ask 6th Seat Hitsugaya, Sakura suggested. If they found anything from it that might point to the murderer, he might know about it. That's assuming that Squad 10 got it at all, but I could ask Rukia as well, said Hinamori, more to herself than the others. Who's Rukia? Asked Samui. Momo laughed. Oh, I guess you guys never got to meet her. She would have graduated in my year, but she got to graduate from the academy early because she was adopted by the Kuchiki family. Kuchiki? Asked Sakura, almost stunned. They're one of the 4 great noble houses. Hinamori nodded. Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. Anyway, she's in Squad 13, and we're still good friends. I wish I had more time to visit my friends, but Captain Aizen keeps me so busy, she trailed off, frowning. Is there anything we can do to help you with the investigation? Asked Tenten. I'm sure that we could do something. Momo shook her head quickly, before lowering her voice. No, I probably would get into trouble for speaking to you at all about it actually. She laughed nervously. No, what would help me is if you guys keep up the good work and graduate, alright? Just concentrate on your grades and these trials. The 5 students nodded, a little disappointed they couldn't help. Speaking of the trials again, Shikamaru began, you wouldn't happen to have any advice, would you? Momo laughed. Yeah, of course. I got to the quarterfinals in my year, and Renji and Izuru finished in the semifinals. Is there anything you want to know specifically? The next part of the tournament is basically one big tournament-style fight, right? Asked Naruto. The young Shinigami nodded. Is there anything in particular you would recommend we do in a fight? Like, anything unusual that may help you do better? Momo considered it for a moment, before nodding. Yeah, of course. Remember your training in class and don't be afraid to step out of the rigidity of the fighting styles they've taught to you. Make your fights your own. Be more clever than your opponent, and you have a better chance of winning. With the bracket decided, Naruto studied his place in the first block, realizing that if he had to win 3 in order to face any of his friends, the first one being Sakura if she won all her matches. Tenten and Shikamaru were on the opposite side of the bracket, isolated enough that they would face each other in the semifinals if they squared off. Samui was in a corner bracket all to herself, but Naruto would face her in the semifinals if she won all of her matches. Welcome to the tournament round of the Year 4 trials, shouted a voice, which turned out to be Professor Takashi. Round 1 will take place today, and will include all the first matchups. The goal to win is to fight until your opponent is unconscious or surrenders, or until the judge declares the fight over in order to save a life. It's an all-out brawl, and we have medical staff from Squad 4 and the Kido Corps here in the rare chance severe wounds are dealt. We pride ourselves that no one has died in over 20 years, so good luck to each and every one of you. Naruto raised an eyebrow. 20 years? That didn't sound like a long time. Alright, would our first combatants come forward to fight? Temari, from Class 1. And Daisuke Nakamura, from Class 2. Naruto watched as the first 2 opponents stepped into the arena. The first was a black-haired boy with a snide expression and almost toad-like features. The other was also in Class 1, a blonde girl whose hair was essentially pulled up in 4 pigtails. Temari and Daisuke bowed to each other, right before the announcer shouted, "Begin!" The boy wasted no time, rushed toward her, and drew his blade. Not using Shunpa turned out to be his biggest mistake. The girl smirked, flashing out of sight. The boy collapsed completely, blood shooting from a gash in his abdomen. The blonde girl stopped, sheathing her blade. The fight was over in literally under a minute, and Naruto had never imagined it would be that quick, that fast. And the winner is Temari, from Class 1. People cheered for her, and Naruto could only look in awe at his friends, who were just as surprised. This Temari girl was strong, and close enough to Naruto that he would face her in round 3. The next 2 fights lasted a bit longer, but they were both finished soon enough. One boy had been very good at Hakuta, but no other standout traits. And then it was Naruto's turn. Naruto, from Class 2. And Shiro Gintama, from Class 2. He was fighting against a skinny, tall boy with brown hair. The boy was someone Naruto had probably not said more than 2 words to in his academy experience. Naruto was scared, wondering just how good he was, if he was good at all. Begin. Naruto did not make the mistake the boy made in the first fight. He used Shunpa to dash to the right, just in time to dodge the boy's super-fast strike. He turned and shouted, "Bakudo number 1, Sai!" The boy stopped in his tracks, the Kido forcing him to his knees with his hands behind his back. His opponent struggled, trying to break free, but he increased the energy in the spell. Naruto walked toward him, keeping his sword in hand in case the boy broke free. When he realized that the boy couldn't overpower it, he grasped the pressure point at the base of the neck, forcing the boy to fall over unconscious. Naruto sheathed his blade and the fight was called for him, some cheering him on. He lifted the boy and carried him to the medical team, before heading to the dugout. "Wow, Naruto!" Sakura exclaimed. "It's not that big of a deal," he muttered. "He just wasn't good. He should have used his Ryatsu to counter the spell." "Well, it doesn't matter very much now," Samui said. "You were really cool out there." "Thanks, Samui." Naruto waited patiently, resting a bit as he watched the next 2 fights. When they were finished, he realized Sakura was up next. The pink-haired girl gulped, before heading out onto the field. It was her time to shine, Naruto knew, and he hoped it went well for her. The announcer called out both the fighters' names, Sakura Haruno versus a slightly overweight girl with twin braids on both sides of her face. The 2 girls looked ready to fight, and Sakura's opponent drew her blade. "Begin!" Naruto watched in awe as Sakura did not even draw her sword, running toward the girl instead with her fists outstretched. Sakura shot up a knee, impacting on the girl's stomach and forcing her to double over, her sword hanging limply at her side. Sakura then forced an elbow in between her opponent's shoulder blades, knocking her to the ground in a heap. The bigger girl, however, was not about to be outdone. She shot up to her feet in a surprisingly quick manner, ignoring the pain she was obviously feeling and slashing at Sakura's exposed shoulder. Bakudo number 8, Seiki. A shining blue orb of light appeared, blocking the sword strike to the shock of the opponent. As the Kido dissipated, the opponent began to chant the incantation for Shikaho, but Sakura shook her head. She grabbed the girl's shoulder, channeled Riryoku into her hand, and yanked the girl toward her as hard as she could, before Shunpaiji to the left out of the way. The opponent crashed into the boulder behind where Sakura had been standing, her body slacking against it, and her Asachi skittering across the rocks. The girl was obviously unconscious now, her body limp. The match was over, with Sakura as the obvious winner, but Sakura walked over to the girl she had just defeated. She held her hands over the girl's worst wound, a large bruised area on the back of her head that might have induced a concussion if she was not careful. She began an incantation, her hands glowing with blue-green Riryoku as she tried to heal the worst of the wound. The girl's eyes fluttered open after a few moments, and Sakura took a deep breath and exhaled. "Sorry for being so rough. You're going to be just fine now." Sakura weakly returned to the dugout as the medical team collected the girl. Sakura had expended quite a bit of Riryoku during the healing process and felt the sting of exhaustion that often accompanied it for a few minutes after using it. Healing Kido was something that took quite a bit of control, and while she had the right mindset for it, it took a lot out of her without preparation like that. All of her friends were glad to see her, shocked at her display and even more shocked that she had healed her enemy. "It's just the human thing to do." "We're not human." "Ah, shut up," Sakura muttered, laughing at Shikamaru's deadpan sarcasm. "The manhandling you just did was not human," Tenten said with a grin. "That was just awesome." Naruto laughed. "I have to agree with Tenten there." The matches continued, with everyone watching the opponents for anything that was worthy of remembering about a potential opponent. Naruto had his mind on how to beat someone like Temari, who had defeated her opponent in one fell swoop. Sakura was someone to be scared of, and he had never really seen Samui in action because she was in Class 1. He didn't know her skill set as well as he should. Nevertheless, her match came up next among Naruto's friends, and she approached the battle with a cool, easygoing demeanor. She was much too confident to let something as trivial as losing worry her, at least at this stage. Samui, from Class 1, and Eri Hamasaki, also from Class 1. Eri was a brunette girl with an obscene amount of makeup on, and her hair dolled up in a stylish bun. She was also the first person Naruto had ever seen that basically changed the uniform to fit her needs, other than Naruto's white and orange headband that AIM had made for him. Her white kosode was tainted with pink cords, and her red hakama almost looked like it was too tight for her to move. Samui looked at the girl with complete ridicule, wondering what the girl was thinking dressing like a common slut. Definitely not cool, she muttered under her breath. Begin. Samui waited, letting the battle happen to her for a moment. She would react, of course, but she needed to test the girl's abilities for a moment. The girl drew her sword, her Zanpakuto to hilt completely pink in a way that made Samui wonder if the girl had achieved Shurikai. If that was the case, Samui had to react because she didn't know if she wanted to deal with that. The blonde poured Ryatsu into her joints, leaping into the air above the girl in one motion. She spun in midair, before pushing off the air and into a dive, her angle directly toward the girl. She immediately drew her Asachi and let gravity do the rest, hoping to catch the girl on the shoulder of her sword arm and leave her momentarily defenseless. But to her surprise, Eri caught her blade with the edge of her sword, spinning the steel in a circle so fast that Samui's Asachi was knocked out of her hand in the split second of their swords clashing together. She threw up her hands in a cross over her face, but Eri slashed at her abdomen, dealing a minor cut before Samui could dash backwards, pushing her entire body off of the air with Riryoku. She landed on her toes, skidding across the ground and kicking up dirt before coming to a flat-footed stop. She cursed the fact that her sword was still several yards away, and if this girl could shunpa in that dress, there was no telling what could happen in the next moment. She began to chant, not good enough to guide the Kido without the chant and definitely not good enough to hold this girl down. Bakudo number 4, Heinoa. She cast the spell, shooting a weak line of yellow light at her sword, wrapping it around the blade, and tugging. Eri tried to react, reached out to grab the sword before Samui could retrieve it. The brunette even made a last-ditch effort to swing her sword and cut through the line of Kido, but it was not enough. Samui yanked it, retrieved it, and then used shunpa to burst herself forward, swinging her sword in a downwards arc. She almost smiled to herself when the sword caught the girl on the hip, drawing blood. Eri screamed, something about messing up her clothes, and surrendering. Samui considered it a moment, before putting her sword back on her back and shrugging mentally. The announcer declared her the winner, and Eri headed toward the medical booth, holding her side. Samui, that was epic, Naruto said, beaming. You're tough as nails, and that Kido was sick. I just wish I could do that kind of stuff on the enemy, she said, proud of herself for what she could do. I'm lucky I walked away without a scratch. Why are you all so self-deprecating? Asked Shikamaru, sighing as though he was exhausted. You guys are trying to downplay what you're good at. Stop it, it's troublesome to have to listen to every time one of us walks out of a match. Naruto laughed. Geez, Shikamaru, calm down. Yeah, we're all lucky we walked away without more a scratch, Sakura explained, leaning over and applying healing Kido to Samui's only cut, a minor wound on her stomach. These matches could go either way. Shikamaru just shook his head, not convinced at all. Truth was, he had pretty much looked several steps ahead at the start of each match his friends were involved in, remembering their skills during the preliminary and using that information to think, to plan. He already had a list of possibilities for his first opponent. He smiled at the possibility of food, hoping to get a good meal so he'll have plenty of energy to win. After Samui's match, there were not really many more notable matches, other than the one that literally ended in a draw, with both fighters knocking each other unconscious in the same moment, a dual Hakuta showdown. It had been decreed that both were eliminated, giving the next fight a chance to have a bit of reprieve. And with that lunch, they headed toward the large pavilion that had been set up, each enjoying the fresh, open air with their food. Samui, Naruto, and Sakura were famished, each eating to restore themselves to their former glory. Shikamaru and Tenten did manage to eat foods with good fiber and Riryoku quality. You two ready for your matches? Asked Sakura, genuinely curious. Tenten proudly smacked her hand on the table, fiercely showing that she was not scared. I'm completely ready. Me too, Shikamaru said. I wish I didn't have to fight, actually, but I can't help but continue. I feel like this has my grade on the line, you know? Naruto nodded, understanding where the boy was coming from. Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm sure Takashi will have to give us a good grade if we do extremely well, and I want to win it all. Tenten glared at him, and Shikamaru smirked. Looks like you'll have to get in line. They sat and ate for several more minutes, but Naruto noticed that everything started to get quiet in the pavilion, the hungry participants suddenly stopping all activity. A few of the rows near the front of the structure got up, prompting everyone else to stand by default. Naruto was confused, not having figured out what was happening until Sakura yanked him up by the collar of his shirt. Everyone was stark quiet, as the two figures that were approaching finally arrived. Naruto's eyes bugged out when he realized whom it was: Squad 4 Captain Retsu Unohana and Squad 4 Lieutenant Isane Kotetsu. No need for formalities, the woman said with an air of authority that made everyone, including Naruto, scramble to get back into their seat. Even though they were all back sitting, they still did not turn back to their meals, staring at the captain and her lieutenant like they were completely alien. What is she doing here? A medical update? Was the question on everyone's minds, her presence shocking even the most solid of personalities. Tenten's eyes grew wider and wider when she realized that the woman was approaching their table, apparently the first to recognize that fact. She wanted to whisper to warn them, but she was too speechless and nervous to speak. When Captain Unohana, one of the most regal and noble figures in all of the Suriidai, stopped at their table, Naruto could almost feel the nobles pressing their eyes on their heads. What was she doing approaching Class 2 trash? Was probably what they were thinking. Forgive me for intruding on your meal, Captain Unohana began, her eyes meeting the green eyes of Sakura. The pink-haired Shinigami in training shook her head as if to say, "No, you're not intruding." No one dared speak though, for they may say something they will regret later. I was so astounded by something that I witnessed today that I had to come and find you to thank you, the woman said, her smile penetrating. Your efforts to save the girl you had just defeated displayed one of the most admirable qualities that any Shinigami can possess, no matter the squad. Your quick thinking and total respect for the girl you had defeated allowed her to escape your bout without a concussion. Thanks to you, this young girl will be able to sleep tonight without any complications, maybe even in her own bed. She paused a moment, letting Sakura's blushing and gushing go down. Thank you so much, Captain Unohana, the pink-haired girl cried. I'm glad that the girl is okay. She gave Sakura another smile before turning to Samui and Naruto, the other two people on the table who had fought in the earlier fights. You also both did well. You caught my eye, Naruto, when you performed that combination Kido during the preliminaries, and I do not expect anything less of you from here on out. And Samui, your expert fighting finesse should be complimented, but you need to work on your Zanjutsu a bit more. You both have a lot of room to improve, and I look forward to watching the rest of your battles unfold. She turned to the other two members of the table, before addressing everyone in the pavilion. Good luck with the rest of your fights today, and be sure to fight to the best of your ability. Captain